Oh, what's going on? Happy Monday. Welcome to TPUSA Live. I'm John Root, and this guy right here, MAGA Hulk, Stephen Davis. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I had a wonderful weekend doing nothing but sleeping.
Sometimes those are the best weekends. I know I've asked a few people around the office here, like, how's your weekend? Like, yeah, I didn't really do much. I don't know how to do that. I need to take some notes.
Go. That's what you do.
Because even for me, I'm just like, God, I could have some time off. You know, I should sit back, you know, read a book and really chill out, maybe poolside or something.
Not so much.
It's like, look at how much time I got. I could fill it with this, that, and the other thing. I don't know if there's people that can relate to me like that. It's hard for me to chill out. But hey, it's going to be a great live stream for you today. We always kick it off with our boy Jack Posobiec from UN Events Daily. He's always hitting the hard-hitting news, everything that is super relevant right now in politics. He's talking about the Canadian truck drivers and how Ottawa police attempted to break up that massive protest in Canada. What they've done has been absolutely incredible. It's been amazing to witness these truckers that are banding together and drove across Canada to go to Ottawa to protest the vaccine mandates. And obviously Trudeau there is out of his tree.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate what they're doing, how they're standing in solidarity with one another, and the fact that they're doing this peacefully. BLM can take a couple of notes if you ask me.
Yeah, seriously. It's going to be interesting to hear what Trudeau had to say about BLM and the truck drivers. We're going to cover that on the couch, but a few more things that Jack's going to be covering on the show today. Senator Lindsey is actually backing President Biden's pledge to automatically pick a black woman for the Supreme Court, saying that it will make the court look more like America.
You know what will make the court look more like America? A constitutionalist. That's what we need. We need more constitutionalists on, Lord have mercy. Don't get me started, I'm telling you.
That's why, you know, I'm always going to try to bring things back to sports, but I think sports is the perfect meritocracy.
Absolutely.
That's the way life should be, and that's the way America should be. The best person gets the job. And I could not imagine right now being chosen for a job due to gender or your skin color.
Specifically.
Obviously, there's a little bit in there of like people work their way up the political sphere or into the court, but to know that the reason that person was picked, just look at VP Harris right now. You were chosen because the color of your skin.
That's it.
And because of your gender. Also, too, can they admit that there's two genders?
Oh.
No? It seems like they're kind of eating themselves alive. Watch out. We're getting spicy today, but that and so much more on UN Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. After that, sitting on the couch with MAGA Hulk Stephen Davis. And the host of Freedom Papers, Morgan Zegers, is going to join us as well.
Hey, there we go.
It's going to be a great show. We're talking more about the Canadian truck drivers, like I told you, and then homelessness in America. I know I come from California. Just moved out here about a year and a half ago, and the homeless problem is absolutely out of control.
Absolutely.
And I think I look at places like Phoenix now, you just see how clean it is around here. And obviously there's certain places around the country where it's probably better to be homeless than others. But look at the leftist politicians in places like California. And look at what's going on in LA. Look at what goes on in the Bay Area. And homelessness in New York and across the country. Who's in charge? Leftist politicians. Come on.
Need I say more?
Yeah.
That's it.
We'll break down too, because they are always the party of trying to decide, oh, well, this is probably the best way to take care of them. No, they need to contribute to society. We'll talk about that. And also, we got TPUSA President from Wheeling High School, Emma Arns, is going to be joining us, talk about her courageous stance against vaccine mandates. So it's going to be an incredible show. Right after that, we got a weekly show, Freedom Papers with Morgan Zegers. She's got a fantastic episode today with Congressman Madison Cawthorn.
Love that guy. That guy is legendary. I mean, he is absolute, just a stud. He's a stud.
He's a stud, but not a stud in arm wrestling matches against you, right?
I wasn't going to bring it up.
It's a very intriguing episode, and he's a funny guy too, very intelligent guy, like two very, very smart people that know their history and doing great stuff for the country. They're going to talk about the importance of running for positions in local government. You don't hear about that enough. Starting a family. And of course, Morgan Zegers got to talk about homeschooling children.
Of course.
And then after that, you'll get a brand new episode of Politics, talk about a walk to forget. I guess we got the 20th anniversary of A Walk to Remember.
Oh, there we go.
Fun fact, I've actually never seen that movie.
Me neither.
I think I've seen a lot of those movies. I think the rom-coms or the actually just ROMs. I've seen some of those, but from roadside to runway, you're talking about how Kanye West is actually hiring some homeless people to be a part of his fashion show. Kind of cool thing he's doing there. Pop quiz and so much more. But coming up next, we got Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec, MAGA Hulk, John Root. We'll see you soon.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition, Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. Today's biggest and top stories. First up, the Ottawa police are attempting to break up a massive trucker protest. Many are calling it the trucker uprising in Canada. We'll discuss that. Second, Bill Kristol, a former conservative or nominal conservative, and his group spent normally $40 million on behalf of Democrats in the 2020 cycle. Third, Senator Lindsey Graham backing Biden's pledge, President Biden's pledge, to automatically pick a black woman for the Supreme Court, saying it will make the court look more like America. And then finally, billionaire megadonor George Soros is pledging an unprecedented $125 million in funding in 2022. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily. The truckers of Canada are rising up. This is amazing. You know, it's like, and you know, look, no offense to any Canadians out there, please do not take this the wrong way, but this is like the first time that something's actually happened in Canada. You know what I mean? You know, it's normally like, well, the lake froze and there was hockey, right? You know, out of Canada. But this, no, look, always been a huge fan of what's going on up there in Canada, especially right now, huge supporter of this. This is an inflection point. You need to go and look at who is supporting the truckers right now of Canada. This is an actual worker uprising. You know, one of those things that the left always says that they support, you know, workers of the world unite, right? Well, the workers of the world are uniting. It's just that they're uniting against vaccine mandates, and you don't like that, so you're completely against them. So you're attacking them, you're trying to smear them as racist, you're trying to say they're misinformation, far right, extreme, everything. There's actually indigenous families out there singing along with everybody else. It's beautiful. And by the way, Canada has a beautiful national anthem. We've actually been going up, I'm from Pennsylvania originally, and we would go up to Canada in the summer. We would go hang out on the lake up there, north of Kingston, and just beautiful, absolutely beautiful area, beautiful people, love the food. This is an inflection point. It is a moment where free people can stand up. But of course, the police in Ottawa, now what are the police in Ottawa? They put a huge thread out on Twitter. Ottawa police tell downtown workers to work from home on Monday and that area schools may be closed due to the Convoy of Freedom. And they're asking city residents to avoid the area while they ask truckers to leave. You know, this is how you know, by the way, that that this trucker protest is not one of those CIA-backed color revolutions, right? You know, Norm Eisen and his friends, they're not behind this one, the Open Society Network. They're not like, you know, like Syria, like Venezuela, some of the stuff that we saw in Kazakhstan recently. This isn't one of those, right? And you can tell it's not one of those because the elites are freaking out over this entire thing. MSNBC this morning, Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, they're saying, we believe there's lots of racists in there and it's a cult. It's absolutely a cult. And look, I gotta say, guys, I was up last night watching the live streams of what was going on. They turned this thing into like a rave up there in Ottawa, right on Parliament Hill. It was beautiful. And you just hear not only the music and the dancing, but those horns honking from these people who are the salt of the earth. They literally are the backbone of our economy. So all you people who've been supporting the lockdown policies all along, right? But you've been eating and you've been getting supplies. And every time you go, you'd venture out, sneak out to the supermarket, right? With your gloves and your triple masks and your face plates. How do you think all that stuff got on the shelves? If you got it, a trucker brought it. That's how this works. Those are the guys who are out there driving Houston to Brooklyn, no sleep, listen to books on tape, listen to podcasts, maybe listen to Human Events Daily, here and there. They are the people who actually make this country run. The actual working class. Many of them are entrepreneurs, by the way. I'm talking about truckers in general right now, but many truckers own their own rigs. So they're entrepreneurs, they're family men, they're religious, they're believers, and they represent truly some of the best in society. So of course, it makes sense that the entire neoliberal establishment would have it out for them. Well, I have a message for the truckers. Honk on. Bill Kristol. Now, you might remember Bill as the guy who went around saying that we absolutely must attack Iraq immediately because Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and he's about to use them against the homeland. This is our greatest national priority. He's, of course, now running around saying that we need to put boots on the ground in Ukraine because Ukraine is our greatest national interest, core interest to the United States. And if we don't, Russia will overrun Ukraine and then probably also use weapons of mass destruction against the United States. It's ridiculous. But the New York Times has just done a very interesting report. And look, I know, the fake news New York Times, the failing New York Times. But this is what's so interesting because they're reporting on donations, dark money donations, this is Kenneth Vogel and Shane Goldmacher. And Kenneth Vogel is one of the few guys over there. He's a straight shooter. He is a straight shooter at the New York Times. Remember, this is the guy who explained the Hunter Biden laptop. This is the guy who explained what was going on in Ukraine earlier on with a lot of these different things. I shouldn't say he wasn't involved with the Hunter Biden laptop. He was involved with what Hunter Biden's deals were in Ukraine, okay? So he's got to report out, New York Times cried dark money, then they won with it in 2020. A New York Times analysis reveals how the left outdid the right at raising and spending millions from undisclosed donors to defeat former President Trump and win power in Washington. But then if you dig down, it shows the big money right was fractured over whether to support President Trump's reelection. Started new groups that were welcomed into the left's big money firmament. Defending Democracy Together, co-founded in 2018 by conservative pundit Bill Kristol, spent nearly $40 million in 2020, 10.5 million of it from the 1630 fund, to go against Republicans. So explain this to me. If you're someone who supported this current administration, who supported these policies that they support, who, by the way, with the Supreme Court justice coming up, we're going to talk about that in the next segment, we know that President Biden is going to pick someone who's pro-abortion, who's against gun rights, who's against freedom of speech, who's for the unlimited growth of government. Yet this is someone that you put in office with your dollars. And then you go around calling yourself a conservative. Let's play a clip of Bill Kristol from about a decade ago explaining what he believes in.
When you really see modern liberal big government up close, when you see its attempt to expand even further, voters really got spooked by that. They really got worried that this was changing America almost. It's one thing to have a little incremental change, a little more, a little addition to the Medicare program, or one more environmental regulation. It's another thing to go to cap and trade, or to Obamacare, or to the stimulus package, or to $1.3 trillion of debt. And so I think voters really recoiled from that. And it made them also think, as happens when you recoil from something, you don't just recoil, you also think, well, what went wrong? And people started to rethink some of the other aspects of the modern welfare state. So I think it's a very interesting moment for conservatives, a very promising moment where voters and citizens are really open to rethinking some things that seem kind of closed over the last decade or two.
It's a scam. It's all a scam. You are being hoodwinked. So if you're someone, right, who actually believes in these ideals, I say, I believe in limited government, I believe in unlocking the power of the individual, I believe in having a small government, small spending, et cetera, this ain't your guy. Because if you're going with him, he's putting money towards the people that stand against everything you believe in. So if they stand against everything you believe in, it makes no sense, right? He's a hypocrite. Now again, you can do what you want. I'm not advocating one way or the other. But this guy goes out and says one thing, raises a bunch of money, and then turns around and helps people who are doing the exact opposite, because he has his own agenda. His agenda isn't what he's telling you. His agenda is what he does. I said this before, I've said this a million times. Conservatives judge people by their actions. Liberals judge people by their words. And so you can see this day in, day out, where they'll say, oh, well, look at this comment, oh, look at this thing, what about this thing? Why did they say this? If somebody misspoke or something is taken out of context, right? You look what they're doing to Joe Rogan right now. They're judging Joe Rogan by trying to take away his speech. But if you look at Joe Rogan's actions, what does he do? He allows people who have a difference of opinion to come out and have a platform. It's a very Gen X way of thinking, 1970s era freedom of speech. Because they can remember that. That's what they came up in. And they were born in the 70s. But as we talked about last week, we're moving to a new situation as the millennials and Gen Z are coming up, where they don't believe in freedom of speech. They believe in control. They believe in restrictions and regulations on freedom of speech. So you've got guys like this again, Bill Kristol. Everything he says is coordinated. It's programmed. It's planned. And it's all a scam. It's meant to fool you. It's meant to get you believing one thing while he does another with your money. The island of Nantucket, those beautiful historic homes up there, underwater because of the nor'easter last weekend, Winter Storm Keenan. And you know that I spent all last week telling you, get ready for this thing. Do not, look, once it happens, it's already too late. That is why you need to prepare before it happens, before something happens. And that's why this winter, I'm urging everyone, go out, support this show, support yourselves. You go to mypillow.com, use promo code POSO. You've got the bedding, you've got the robes, you've got the sheets, the towel packs, the slippers, and of course, the original pillows. That's where you need to go. Support the Patriots, get in the fight, support American workers, mypillow.com/POSO, and use promo code POSO. Well, Senator Lindsey Graham, a nominally conservative senator, right? So we're talking about scams today. We're talking about people who go around begging for donations and claiming they're conservatives. Well, he went on CBS Face the Nation this weekend. And I'm not even going to tell you what Senator Graham said. I want you to hear what Senator Graham said for yourself.
And President Reagan said, running for office, that he wanted to put the first female on the court. Whether you like it or not, Joe Biden said, I'm going to pick an African-American woman to serve on the Supreme Court. I believe there are plenty of qualified African-American women, conservative and liberal, that could go onto the court. So I don't see Michelle Childs as an act of affirmative action. I do see putting a black woman on the court, making the court more like America. In the history of our country, we've only had 5 women serve and 2 African-American men.
Senator Graham went on to say that nominating a black woman to the Supreme Court would make it look more like America and that it was not affirmative action, according to Business Insider. Graham rejected the idea that President Biden tapping a black woman for a Supreme Court is affirmative action. The senator said the president had a wealth of qualified candidates to choose from. Earlier, Senator Wicker also said that a black female nominee, he said that a black female nominee would be a beneficiary of affirmative action because obviously it's affirmative action if you're choosing someone based on identity politics first and not choosing the best person for the, if you go back, they used to actually have to do this dance kind of around this, right? So they used to say, oh, no, it's not because of affirmative action. It's not because we believe diversity is our strength, right? That's what they always say for some reason. They would say, well, we think that this is better, and they'd play this word game with it. Well, the word games are done. They're just outright saying, we are going to choose someone because of their race and because of their gender. And that's actually detrimental to the people that are put in these positions, because now anytime someone is nominated who may actually be very qualified for this position, though because it's President Biden, I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I think I'd like to double check, maybe run a little fact check on that. But here's the thing. If you're doing that, you're undercutting everything that person has worked for, that person's accomplished, that person's achieved, and that's what we really have now in this country. And this has been going on before I was born, before many of us were born. It is a war on achievement. It's a war on success. It's going to people and saying that you doing your best isn't good enough because of how you were born, because you're a kulak, right? You're someone who, it's now been that the kulaks were in the Russian Civil War after the Communist Revolution. They were brushed aside. All of the ills of society were blamed on them. Everything that was wrong, everything that could potentially be criticized about society, well, it's not anyone else's fault. It's the kulak's fault. So you're a kulak now. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter what your test grades are. It doesn't matter if you can speak multiple languages and play multiple instruments and letter on a sports team in high school. Doesn't matter, because you're a kulak. And someone else will always be put ahead of you because of the way you were born. And by that same token, right, if you're someone who's the beneficiary of this system, completely unconstitutional, by the way, then all of the same applies. You get put to the front not because of your hard work, but because of your identity. That's a problem. You can't run a country like this. It's actually illegal. You can't hire somebody based on this. Completely illegal. And yet somehow we're allowing our Supreme Court to be chosen this way. President Biden's approval rating is in the sewer. I say it's in the sewer because the sewer is lower than the gutter. It was in the gutter before, now it is completely in the sewer. That's what's below the gutter. And that is where, of course, it will remain until he starts returning to a little something that I like to refer to as common sense. Common sense government. Stop getting us involved in these overseas debacles. We don't need another endless war, and certainly not on the Eurasian steppe. We don't want to get into a winter war with Russia. Just a little bit of historical precedent there, just a tiny little bit. But of course, it doesn't matter because they're going to get paid anyway. And what do I mean they're going to get paid anyway? Story out of Politico. Megadonor billionaire George Soros pledges unprecedented $125 million to help Democrat Party win in November. Isn't that nice? Isn't that so good for him? Politico reports that the nonagenarian billionaire is committing $125 million, an enormous and unprecedented, even for Soros, sum to help them win as many congressional races as possible in November and beyond. It appears that Soros' top issue this time around is voting rights, which also happens to be near the top of President Biden's agenda, as he and his congressional allies struggle to pass a new voting rights bill. This is from Politico. The group Bureaucracy PAC has served as Soros' campaign spending vehicle since 2019, channeling more than $80 million to other groups and candidates during the 2020 cycle. We've also talked, by the way, about how he's funded many of these far left, I call them pro-crime district attorneys. The new 9-figure investment from Soros is aimed at supporting pro-democracy causes and candidates, regardless of political party, who are invested in strengthening the infrastructure of American democracy. You know, I'm sorry, I've got to do this in the announcer voice. The new 9-figure investment from Soros is aimed at supporting pro-democracy causes and candidates, regardless of political party, who are investing in the strengthening the infrastructure of American democracy, voting rights and civic participation, civil rights, liberties, and the rule of law. Wow, isn't that just amazing? But let's go back, because we've been told before from Mr. Soros why he does this stuff. Take a listen to this clip from just a few years ago.
In the last 2 years, you've been blamed for financial collapse of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, and Russia.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Are you that powerful?
No, I think there's a great misunderstanding. I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do. As a competitor, I've got to compete to win. As a human being, I am concerned about the society in which I live.
Which George Soros am I talking to now? The amoral George Soros or the moral George Soros?
It's one person. It's one person who, at one time, engages in amoral activities, and at the rest of the time tries to be moral.
So here's the bottom line. Soros added, let's go again from Politico, Soros added that the donation to the super PAC is a long-term investment, end quote, intended to support political work beyond this year. Ladies and gentlemen, when people show you who they are, you need to believe them. Are you paying attention yet? Because here in the Human Events Daily, we certainly are. And that's it for us today. Here, Human Events Daily, your fastest paced, hardest hitting, highest value news and analysis that you're going to get. This has been your daily briefing. Remember our motto to you, our oath, our solemn vow. Be good, be brief, be gone. But before we go, it's time for today's history break. On this day, in 1943, was the end of the Battle of Stalingrad. Over 1 million people died. We just talked about battles on the Eurasian steppe, right on the Volga River in the south of Russia. This is one of the bloodiest wars of the Eastern Front and one of the bloodiest battles, single battles of the entire World War II. Do not get involved in these killing fields. You don't want that. Ladies and gentlemen, you have, as always, my permission to lay ashore.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country's very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for life, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
This is Jack Posobiec, and it so ends Human Events Daily from the regime-occupied National Capital Region. We now turn it over to the free state of Arizona as Turning Point Live continues on the couch. Take it away, John.
Good stuff, Jack. Thanks a lot. Hey, everybody. Welcome to TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, John Root, and this is TPUSA Live. Here's the rundown for all the mandate madness we're covering today. First, California politicians defy their own mandates and more in the daily briefing. Next, over 100,000 Canadian truckers band together to fight against mandates at the Canadian Capitol. Then, a TPUSA president from Chicago details her fight against mandates at her high school and in her state. And finally, homelessness in America, followed by honoring the slain NYPD officers in one last thing. All right, let's do this. TPUSA Live from HQ starts now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TPUSA Live at TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. We got Morgan Zegers here who's trying to make me laugh during the rundown of the show.
Never. I'm just shocked there's not a game. I don't know.
It's all right, but maybe we can make up a game.
We got
an hour.
I don't know why I'm asking. I hate the games. Anyways, they make me all nervous and anxious.
My goodness. Well, Morgan's not going to make up her mind for the whole show, so get used to that. Also, the host of Freedom Papers.
I don't know if have an episode tonight, Johnny Root. Guess what?
What?
It's with Madison Cawthorn. So
hey, Congressman Madison Cawthorn.
Kind of a big deal. And if you don't watch, I don't know what you're doing with your life. I don't know.
Wow. So you got that. We also have MAGA Hulk Stephen Davis. You might have seen him. Maybe.
I don't know.
Takes up a good amount of space.
A little bit.
Don't let him say that to you.
You know what? Thank you. Thank you. You know what? Talk to my lawyer, okay?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're about 4 minutes into the show, and it's already off the rails. But we're going to get you caught up with the daily briefing. First off, obviously I'm a big sports guy. Mm-hmm. Tuesdays are a big day for me, so are Sundays. So yesterday we had the NFC Championship game at SoFi Stadium,
I knew that.
where the Super Bowl is going to be. Tell us who was playing, Morgan.
I know Tom Brady retired.
Maybe.
I don't know anything else.
But the big news out of SoFi Stadium when the Rams were taking on the 49ers for a chance to go to the Super Bowl was Governor Gavin Newsom and a few other leftist politicians from California defied their own mandates and decided to go maskless with some photos with Magic Johnson, Lakers legend. And then you also had San Francisco Mayor London Breed was there. I'm sure she was feeling the spirit. There's Governor Gavin Newsom with Magic Johnson, and also LA Mayor Eric Garcetti. His city's looking like a third world country.
Oh, yeah.
But he's chilling in a suite at SoFi Stadium.
You know, I didn't know who was playing in this game. I didn't even know the game happened, but I did see the picture of him maskless. And considering kids and students are still wearing masks in school, of course I care about that one. Sorry about the sports thing, though.
Not so much, huh? But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the typical rules for thee, but not for me. And I really think that, you know, especially, I have love for California because that was my home state for most of my life.
Me too.
But exactly, so you understand, you know, but at the end of the day, I think the failed recall effort kind of emboldened Governor Newsom in thinking that, I mean, if there's not going to be any consequence for my actions, then why does it matter if I get caught not wearing my mask? Why does it matter if I can say a rule for this person and that person and everybody else except for me? You know, so I'm not surprised that this is happening, especially if there's not going to be any consequences for his actions. So you can bet that this is going to keep happening.
Well, that indoor mask mandate was extended to February 15th out there. And I think a lot of kids and anybody going to some sort of indoor dining or something like that should identify as a Rams fan at SoFi Stadium. And then you can go maskless, you can do whatever you want, Californians, go for it.
I was going to say, you know, it's a good thing they keep extending that because it's just so effective. It's just clearly working.
Absolutely.
So obviously we should continue to stay locked down and masked. I mean, that's the science.
Yeah, the science.
Sign of the time. Yes, it's trust the science.
Yeah,
and
then
the science. And if you don't, you're going to the gulag.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Am I allowed to say that?
You just did.
Well, you can't find the gulag because it's under a bunch of trash out there. You're not really sure. It's kind of like a dirty speakeasy or something.
Yeah,
like
they
that.
probably got one out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can hide a lot in that trash.
Yeah.
A whole lot.
Sorry.
A whole lot.
My goodness, going off. There's a lot of trash out there, and in that photo that we showed you as well. But another piece of news is Nicole Hanna-Jones, the author and creator of the 1619 Project, is getting paid a lot of money to share her nonsense. So she got paid to speak at University of Wisconsin, $55,000.
Oh boy!
To tell people that white people, there's nothing you can do. You're inherently racist. It's in your core, and that you should just keep paying me money. I'll keep telling you how racist and terrible the place is, and I'll go on my tour.
John, it is a lucrative business to do the devil's work, and that is the work of the 1619 Project. That's my thought.
That was profound.
That was profound.
All right,
it's the devil.
Clip it, throw it out there on social media.
Well, I mean, it's typical when it comes to a person like that to say that blacks can't, make it, systemically racist and all this type of stuff. But yet and still, when the 1619 Project came out in 2019, this was during the Trump presidency, and median household incomes within the black community rose 15%, right? So while we're making gains and experiencing black excellence, she's going around peddling this nonsense that black Americans can't somehow make it without some type of equity. It's absolutely ridiculous, but she's going to obviously get paid.
I know.
Obviously.
We'll finish this conversation on the other half of the break, but you look at people like Frederick Douglass and then MLK. Those people just didn't do it for some lucrative tour to make some money, get some media job. They did it because they wanted to create real change.
Absolutely.
And I know we were talking about that earlier. We'll get your take on that right after the break. But we're going to talk about the Canadian truckers banding together over 100,000 to push back against mandates. Be back in 90 seconds.
Good ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at goodranchers.com.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. Morgan Zegers, host of Freedom Papers. You get to watch that right after we finish the show on the couch. MAGA Hulk, Stephen Davis. And before we get into the Canadian Truckers Freedom Convoy, over 100,000 of them banding together to go to the Capitol in Canada. We want to finish this conversation we're having, especially talking about Nicole Hanna-Jones. Someone like that is just a race baiter. It's like Joy Reid as well. These people are just looking for more clout, more followers, more money. When you looked at people like MLK and Frederick Douglass, they actually did real work to create change. Not for money, not for clout, not for fame, nothing at all.
Absolutely. I mean, they stood for equality. They wanted equality, and they worked hard and dedicated their lives to that. You have Nicole Hanna-Jones, who dedicates her life to success, and she's achieving success monetarily, but what she's doing to the country is not successful, right? What she's doing to the country is denigrating. And you look at the different aspects of these different individuals like Frederick Douglass and Nicole Hanna-Jones, and you really look at their legacies and what they're leaving behind, and they couldn't be farther apart. I mean, one stood for equality, the other one standing for equity, which are two ideas are the exact antithesis of each other. So I'm not surprised. I mean, this is what this new era has brought about, this idea of making money off the backs of oppression and oppression Olympics and things of that nature, and off of their own community that they're supposed to be upholding. So I'm not surprised that this is going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. They're opportunists, and they're going to continue denigrating the black community for their own pockets.
And look at what Frederick Douglass said. He didn't say that our documents and our foundation was systemically racist and there's nothing you can do about it. He said, hey, these documents are good, but we're not living up to them.
Right.
And then you have people on the other side of the aisle here, Nicole, Hanna, Jones, saying like, no, we got to tear everything down. These documents, I would love to see like just Frederick Douglass up from the grave, just one time, just have a debate there and just each other down real quick.
Demolish. He would absolutely demolish her intellectually, morally. I mean, if we can do a matchup of back in the day, Frederick Douglass to the current Nicole Hanna Jones, oh, it would be fantastic.
Want to know what this reminds me of? Did you see the Joe Rogan video he posted on Instagram?
Yeah, explaining everything that's happening.
So I took a little piece of that and it got me really excited because he says, you know, an effort I'm going to start making is inviting people from the other side. You guys are right. I should give them a platform. And he's trying to make it seem like, you know, I'll have one person on, like Dr. Malone, I'll have another person on the other side. I think what he's saying is, you guys really want me to have somebody on that says crazy stuff? I'll invite them on. I'll give them a platform if they're willing to come on, and I will confront them. And so I think that's exactly what would happen, and I'm excited to see that.
Me too.
Well, and people are acting like he hasn't done that before.
Yeah.
He's done that so many times.
I hope he does it more, though, because it does so well. I mean, Sanjay Gupta, remember that guy?
Yeah.
That went viral all the time because it's finally nice to hear them confronted with basic truths. And then they have to try and explain themselves. They can't do it.
And then even when he had Jack Dorsey on, and then there was another like high-level person from Twitter, and then they had Tim Pool on.
Yeah.
And then I don't think Tim Pool would call himself like a staunch conservative or anybody, but it's like people on other sides of the aisle of a certain conversation. It's. I think that was a spot-on video, though. I know we're going to talk about the Canadian truckers, don't you worry. But it was such a spot-on video to say, hey, I'm not going to apologize for anything. I'm too big to get canceled, and I have the receipts. I'm already doing everything you're getting mad at, and also, nobody knows who Neil Young is anymore. Doesn't matter.
Well, and then what's nice, too, he finished with a story about how he used to work security when he was like a kid at a Neil Young concert because he worked at the concert venue. And just bringing in that sense of humanity. I mean, they really try and dehumanize him, and they try and make him seem like this evil person. And he just keeps hitting him back with kindness, and I love that.
Yeah, he does a great job. All right, other people that are doing a great job, Canadian truckers. So they started last weekend. Banded together over 100,000 trucks, started in British Columbia, and moved their way to Ottawa, the Canadian capital, because they were protesting what was going on with the vaccine mandates, the mask mandates. They've had absolutely enough of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So there's some people supporting them. It's absolutely incredible, the footage that's coming out of here, too. I know I got this in here exactly what their Instagram is called. I think it's Freedom Convoy 2022. You can find
I followed them and they thanked me.
Wow.
I feel famous. I feel famous.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Peaked.
Welcome to TPUSA Live on the Couch. Morgan's going to pump her tires on the show. I got Congressman Madison Cawthorn. Also, they said thanks so much for the follow.
I learned how to change a tire this week. Mason Minner, Gun Fu Fighter on Instagram, taught me how to change the tire on my 4Runner. Wow. So I'm having a great week.
Wow, you're really making moves.
She's making
New Year.
Let's talk about the important thing, which is the Freedom Convoy, and it looks like we got us a convoy. If you don't know that song, you're missing out on a great opportunity.
Yep. And then we're showing some more footage of this on this Freedom Convoy. It's incredible to see the work from these truckers and how they've gotten so much support from across Canada. Like, look at some more of these. Look at this kiddo and probably his dad there. It's honestly, God bless freedom. That's so true.
The kid audio messages, have you seen those? Where they're all sending positive supporting messages to the truckers saying what they're going to do when they're free again.
Oh, I love the fact that they're embracing freedom like that. Isn't it so amazing and wonderful? And one thing I really love about this is it's all done peacefully, right? There's no type of shenanigans going on. There's no type of violence. BLM could take a couple of notes from this type of protest, because this is how you do it. This is how you enact change for your cause, for your state, for your country. And I love the fact that they're doing it in such a peaceful manner. They're cleaning up after themselves. It's wonderful to see.
That's a good point. I saw people cleaning up just garbage, like food and things like that were on the floor, because at any concert venue, any big event, that does pick up. So they had people specifically designated for picking things up, and you are going to have have some bad apples. There was some spray painting on the windows, and people were going through immediately and scraping off the paint to make it look like they were never there, and that because that doesn't represent their movement, and they're very clear about that. And that's what I love. The leaders at the top said, do not act in a certain way. We want to keep it peaceful. And that's what made the difference. In America, when we had those riots and the looting, the people at the top were saying, we'll bail you out of jail.
Right.
That's the big difference.
Right.
And speaking of BLM, though, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is pretty supportive in
you don't say.
BLM.
Oh, okay. I was going to be like, what, of the convoy? Did I miss something?
That's a no-go.
Did I miss the recent press release?
No, very, very supportive of BLM. He actually said that in a video, and you might have heard the news that he was out of the government building. Him and his family left when he knew the convoy was coming, and he also said that he got COVID, so he had to be quarantining.
Convenient.
Very convenient timing, and posted this video talking about being sympathetic to BLM and what he really thinks about this Freedom Convoy. Check it out.
That's great.
I have attended protests and rallies in the past when I agreed with the goals, when I supported the people expressing their concerns and their issues. Black Lives Matter is an excellent example of that. But I have also chosen to not go anywhere near protests that have expressed hateful rhetoric, violence towards fellow citizens, and a disrespect not just of science, but of the frontline health workers and, quite frankly, the 90% of truckers who have been doing the right thing to keep Canadians safe, to put food on our tables. Canadians know where I stand. This is a moment for responsible leaders to think carefully about where they stand and who they stand with.
You know, so that really fluffy language, John, it gave me this flashback to this video that I saw. He has an uncanny resemblance to Fidel Castro. And I've just got to say, it reminded me of a video of this man that he has an uncanny resemblance to. And Fidel Castro used to call himself a democratic humanitarian. And so when these lefties use that kind of fluffy language, it just goes, I don't pay attention. I don't listen to it. I in one ear, out the other, because we got to look at what their actions are. And their actions are tyrannical.
And then something like this, it's propaganda. That's it.
100%.
That is just straight propaganda. You listen to him saying, like, you know, Canadians know where I stand. Yes, they know where you're saying. That's why they're doing it. Like, I don't understand how you say something like that. And you're just like,
yeah, we do.
Yeah. He's so out of touch with his base, and I can't wait to see people like that primaried and kicked out of office with someone who more so represents the people and the wishes and the wills of the people, because the people are not about this. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they're protesting in the way that they're doing, because they don't like what's going on with their country. They don't like the fact that their freedoms are being trampled on. They don't like, truckers. I think some of the truckers, as a matter of fact, some of the vaccinated truckers are joining this convoy.
Yeah, the vast majority of them are vaccinated. So that's from the Canadian Trucking Alliance. They estimate about 85 to 90% of the over 120,000 Canadian truckers are vaccinated. There's a lot of, like, we've covered protests so much across, like, this country, what's going on in Australia, what's going on in Canada. A lot of these people are vaccinated.
Yes,
a lot of
it's
these
the
people,
concept of force that humans, we are standing up because it's just so against human dignity. It's against basic human rights. And we're doing some projects at Turning Point about natural law and the origin of rights and the fact that we're given rights by our Creator. And this idea of force versus choice is coming to fruition. We've never seen it before in our lifetime. So it's shocking a lot of people, even ones that would choose to get the vaccine.
Yep.
Shame.
And then, too, when you have someone like Prime Minister Trudeau say, hey, I'm denouncing this violence and everything, obviously just totally disregarding BLM Inc., that's all about violence. Jack Posobiec found a pretty interesting tweet
this is
about
going to be
truckers.
good.
And this is something that the Prime Minister said in March of 2020. This you? Well, many of us are working from home. There are others who aren't able to do that, like the truck drivers who are working day and night to make sure our shelves are stocked. So when you can, please hashtag thank a trucker for everything they're doing and help them however you can.
Well,
Rich.
You just got dunked on. Prime Minister Trudeau, honestly, quit.
Honestly,
this
is a good
go off
lesson,
into the long dark night.
A lot of people really do think that politicians like draft the tweet and every post is from them. you guys, they have a whole social media team and a bureaucratic office that just puts out all of their communication. Like President Biden, for example.
Yeah.
He's not writing anything that we see, any speech, any piece of communication. And that's the case with a lot of American politicians. But with this, it's just such a good example of this elite political bureaucratic class that they will ride the tide. If we're thanking a trucker, we're doing hashtag thank a trucker. If we're now calling truckers racist, we are calling truckers racist, baby.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're just flowing with whatever suits them, whatever serves them, and the politicians really couldn't give a crap at all.
Yeah.
Well, and then I know when we were covering it a little bit earlier in the show, talking about Governor Gavin Newsom and the rest of the California politicians that were at the NFC Championship game in LA, and you have the media that's supposed to be doing the job here. They're supposed to be asking the Prime Minister about this. They're supposed to be asking the California politicians, and then they just have a response that is just all fluff, and that's it. Where it's like, oh, I just took it off for that 1 second to take a photo with Magic Johnson. Or are you really going to question me and say that this isn't violence? They're going to point to just one little unsavory flag that was there, or somebody that spray painted something, and it totally disregards the 99.99% of the movement that's doing incredible work, and they're not actually talking about what people are upset about.
Yeah, well, we actually get punished in all of these situations. We are punished or fined or put in jail or whatever punishment these people, that the elites, want to put down onto us. My least favorite example, do you remember this? The politician, I can't remember where she was from, she got busted for being at some club or restaurant. She got up from her table maskless.
Mayor London Breed from San Francisco. She was at the game too.
She took her mask off and started dancing, and when the press was like, why'd you do that? You make everybody else wear a mask. She was like, well, this song came on, and you can't expect me to not dance when they're playing a song. It's the best band around.
She was like, Tony was there.
Like
the rest of the
you gotta take your mask off and dance.
Everything.
That's literally her answer. And then it's like, well, but your kids have to sit for 8 hours and wear a mask. But I get to boogie when the song is good.
Yeah, parents out there in California, you should just
He's gonna kick me off this couch.
People in indoor dining or bars or wherever you're at, or your kids should say either Tony is there.
True.
Or that you are a Rams fan at SoFi Stadium.
Yes.
Or that I'm a politician so I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Might as well
They just want us to suffer.
Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm so glad. I know we talk about California a ton on the show. We talk about New York, but places like that, I don't understand why people are still there. And, I was just in a place, I was in Denver, Colorado this last weekend.
I saw that.
That was amazing. It was a lot of fun to hang out with some
me.
college buddies. Morgan, we didn't go to
Where's
college
the camera?
together.
I'm going to look directly at the camera.
She's very upset right now.
I'll tell you what, if you went to college with me and the boys, you would have been a part of the trip.
I don't know what that means.
But it was the first time I ever went to a place that required a vaccine. I legitimately could not get into this place to watch the football game if I wasn't vaccinated. And there's a lot of people, I've never had to deal with that, but I know I had some friends that are from New York, and they have to deal with that all the time. I know Alex Clark, when she was on the show the other day, she was talking about Washington, D.C. Isabel was talking about that as well, but the kind of crap that people are dealing with, that's why these Canadian truckers are banding together. Who would have thought that the superheroes of the entire world would be Canadian truckers?
Fantastic.
They're doing more for free.
Trucker.
Thank a trucker.
Hashtag thank a trucker.
Heck yeah.
Thanks, Prime Minister, for that. But also, too, you can donate to their cause, because I know as of right now, they're just under their $10 million goal. You can go to GoFundMe and donate there. Incredible work. But coming up next, we're going to talk to a TPUSA president, what she's doing to fight back against mandates in Chicago. See you in 90 seconds.
What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona.
El socialismo no funciona.
TPUSA Live is about to be spicy. I mean, would you expect anything less? It's me, Alex Clark. Of course it's going to be spicy. Tune into The Spillover, my brand new podcast. Think of it like the older sister to politics with a lot more conservative.
What's up, guys? My name is John Root, and every week I'm breaking down the top stories in sports and bringing you conversations you won't hear anywhere else. It's going to be a great time here on Breakaway. everyone. Welcome back to TPUSA Live. Morgan Zegers, MAGA Hulk, Stephen Davis. I'm John Root. We are going to be joined by a TPUSA president at a high school right around the Chicago area in Illinois. She's the chapter president at Wheeling High School in Wheeling, Illinois. Only 18 years old, obviously a very outspoken conservative. I love talking to our student activists because, once again, what they have to deal with and how courageous they've been. So she's someone that's really used her voice to push back against the mandates in places like Chicago and the surrounding area. And she actually spoke at the Freedom Unleashed Chicago rally to end the mandates.
Nice.
We have with us Emma Arns. Welcome to TPUSA Live.
Ooh.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
You have a great setup too. Look at you. You're ready to rock and roll for this.
you.
I love it.
Right.
I know, what the heck?
So prepared. It's like a little Morgan Zegers. I love it.
I know, she
I've
looks
got
like
some-
me. I have that at my home.
Yeah, I've got some podcasters and like video YouTubers in my family, so they help me out.
But tell us a little bit more about your speech at the Freedom Unleashed Chicago rally to end mandates, because there's a lot of young people like you that are going through there's vaccine mandates, there's mask mandates. What made you step up and feel empowered to speak out against this and try to create some change?
Well, I really wanted to kind of get my voice out there, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to do that. We face serious discrimination with the vaccine mandates in restaurants, bars, gyms, everything like that. But I thought, like, hey, I can come up here and kind of represent like the younger population, the younger patriots, and kind of say what everybody's sort of thinking, I think.
And then you also called out Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Nice.
Obviously see her in the news quite a bit. What'd you have to say about her?
Not a fan necessarily.
Couldn't imagine.
I did call her a tyrant, but I think it's just like the start of her tyrannical views, and it's really just segregation that she's promoting.
And then Morgan, I know you've been on some campuses quite a bit. You've seen a lot of stories like this, but there's not many Emma Arns out there.
No. Well, that's what's so exciting, because you're in a great spot, and so I give you a lot of credit. I'm from upstate New York, and so I grew up under Governor Cuomo. I had a lot of opportunity to speak out about him. That's how I got involved in politics. And so having that opportunity to go up against some of the worst tyrants in America is really a blessing, because it gives you a great platform to then launch from. So I give you a lot of credit for speaking out, and I hope you just keep doing it, because she's going to give you a lot of opportunities to do so. You know what I mean? You got to now hold her accountable with everything.
Absolutely.
And then what do you think? What was the response you got from the crowd there, and then maybe even some classmates?
The crowd was amazing. I think we had over 500 people, which was just an amazing turnout. We weren't expecting, I don't know if I wasn't expecting that many people, but yeah, I just got up there and, said what I believe. So it was a great response from the crowd, not a great response from my classmates and teachers even at school, but I have a good amount of people and peers that support me. So I think that's what's kind of keeping me grounded right now.
And usually when we talk to our student activists, we let them know that Stephen Davis, MAGA Hulk, is for hire. So just in case you need some backup there, you always got Stephen. Remember that.
No, and I will say too as well, when I started speaking out, a bunch of girls from my school and other people that I had known for years, they all of a sudden turned on me, and it's really hard. But Turning Point is such a great community, and that's why I encourage people to join, because we provide that sense of friendship and support that you just probably aren't going to get in your classroom anymore once you become clearly a public conservative. So good job on that too.
So I have to ask, given what you're going through and going through, school and having to deal with mask mandates and things of this nature, how have your peers kind of dealt with that? Have they been supportive of you and standing against that, or have they kind of been going against you? Have you been receiving a lot of anger and vitriol? I mean, how has the reception been?
From students in my school specifically, a lot are more left-leaning, and they encourage you to wear the mask. They tell you to get vaccinated. There's only a very small amount, and most of them are that I have in the Turning Point chapter with me that really believe that this is an invasion of our rights and our medical freedoms and our personal freedoms, and that we should stand against it. But Wheeling High School, most students do just disagree with me.
Also, one more thing. Now, when it comes to the masks, there's been a lot of data, a whole lot of data, conflicting the idea that, you know, masks are something beneficial for use, especially the cloth mask and things of this nature. When you present that information to them, when you present the science, so to speak, what do they say? I mean, do they believe you? Are they listening to you when it comes to the science, when you actually break it down scientifically? Or how's the reception in that regard?
Only a select few will really stop and listen and, you know, respect what you have to say, but the rest just are very closed-minded. I know a lot of closed-minded people that won't even reason.
Lovely.
So, like, right now we live in a day and age where a lot of these conversations get extremely emotional, and a lot of people are missing the logic. So if you were going to give some advice to maybe some other students on campus and maybe students across the country, how do you tell them to maybe try to dip into both sides? Because I think a lot of these conversations, you can't completely just go logical. Because a lot of people are so just morally corrupted and they get so emotional because they really think that they're saving people or killing people. There's these both extremes. What advice would you give to students to make sure they can have these discussions and find a way forward?
Yeah, I say still definitely stay open-minded to people who disagree with you. You know, you can always learn something from them sometimes. But yeah, no, it's important to have those discussions and have debate and, you know, keep it professional, really.
Why do you think it's so important to have Turning Point USA have your back in situations like this? Because there's probably a lot of students out there, they're thinking like, well, you know, I want to have another student like Emma have my back, but I don't know, it's tough when I only have a few people and it doesn't seem like we're really going to make a big voice or this is able to get out there. What do you think the importance of Turning Point USA having your back is?
I think it's really good to have like a community. I went to America Fest. I made tons of friends, hopefully that I'll know for a really long time. So they're kind of, they're really supporting me, reposting my my speech and my, you know, my posts and everything. So it's really good to have people that do support you because the people who disagree with you can really get to you.
That's what's so fun. Every time, I know throughout this whole month, we've shown a lot of exclusive interviews from America Fest. And every time I watch those, I just go back in time and I'm thinking, there are so many people that want freedom. There's so many people that want to fight the culture war. There's so many students that need to hear your story, Emma. And I'm sure there's all the left wants to do, and a lot of people in school boards and a lot of people in power want you to think that you're some sort of conspiracy theorist, that you're just one of one, you're just some person that just doesn't go along with the norm, that you should just comply. And there's a lot of people that have been really weak, and I just can't imagine having to go through that stuff in high school. So who are you really leaning on right now too? Like what sources are you going to make sure you have information? How do your parents feel about this? And to make sure, because obviously you got the backing of Turning Point, but who else are you going to?
Well, I get my facts from credible sources, VAERS, CDC. I listen to podcasts like yours, and then I always fact check those. But I really get like my strength to keep doing this from my family and from my Turning Point friends.
And then what's your goal at the end of this too? Is there some light at the end of the tunnel? Are people because you're at Wheeling High School, are there people that want to chat with you that are in power right now? Maybe some other teachers, maybe some people on the school board. Are they willing to listen? What's the next step?
I haven't heard anything from administration yet, but I'm very willing to, share my opinion and tell them why I think I'm right. But yeah, I haven't heard anything so far. I know students definitely, they might want to talk or they might just want to tell me what they have to say, but I'm willing to talk to anybody. I think it's important to, like I said, have debate and reason with people and kind of educate each other on different aspects.
And then as we wrap up here, where can people follow your TPUSA chapter or follow you to make sure they can stay up to date about what you're doing, pushing back against these mandates?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Arns Emma. It's ARN like Nancy, S like Sam, Emma, or our Wheeling High School TPUSA page on Instagram, WHS TPUSA.
Well, keep up the great work. Honestly, I love having conversations like this. It's always super inspirational, and you're really taking a courageous stand. You're doing more. You and the Canadian truckers are doing more for freedom than the majority of people across the world. Emma, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, we will be back in 90 seconds to talk about homelessness in America See you soon.
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Osiga Kaku. I'm from the great state of North Carolina, and I'll see you at freedomsquare.com.
My name is Preston Para, and we'll see you at freedomsquare.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle Clare from Bolingbrook, Illinois, and I will see you at freedomsquare.com.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie. I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and we'll see you at freedomsquare.com.
Hi, I'm Johnny Richardson. I'm from Prescott, Arizona, and I'll see you at freedomsquare.com.
I'm Rachel. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and you'll see me at freedomsquare.com. I'm Soraya. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I will see you at freedomsquare.com.
My name is Michelle DeGroot from Los Angeles, California, and I'll see you at freedomsquare.com.
Hi, my name is Emma Faye Redcan, and I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I will see you at freedomsquare.com.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. I'm John Root with Morgan Zegers, MAGA Hulk Stephen Davis.
That was fantastic, by the way. That was great.
I always have finger welcomes. Hello! I think this is rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's last time I heard it's called Rock On.
I thought that was Hook'em.
Rock on, rock and roll.
There's the Hook'em horns.
Yeah, that's
You guys are the cool ones.
But this is
probably.
Rock On.
We're the cool kids.
Come on, you're a cool cat too.
You think so?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh.
That's why you got invited to the show.
God.
You made it. Because Stephen was like, all right, who do we want on the show today? He's like, all right, who's
Well,
pretty
Morgan
cool?
lives
Morgan's
5
pretty
minutes
cool.
away. Let's have her fill in.
Don't give away all of secrets.
Did you tell her the real reason? I
think so. My bad. I'm
Just
sorry.
your-
I'm sorry. My
You
bad.
needed to like meet a diversity quota, so you needed a woman. Stupid man couches.
I feel like you got to be there when Isabel's back. And then we'll get Joe Bob here because it was Stephen, Joe Bob, and I.
Oh.
Well, that was, what, last week?
Oh, yeah.
At some point,
intense.
she's like, oh, I'm on the boys
Oh, the
show.
boys,
So
and
she's like
with the
leaning back
boys.
and she throws up the deuces too. You can do that.
She's like the most sweet, innocent.
I know, right?
Yo.
One of the boys.
It's kind of like what you just did when we got in from commercial. You just threw up this deuces.
This was a peace sign. It was just like a hello world. I'm John Lennon.
Embody it.
Is John Lennon still on Spotify?
I don't know these. Come on, you're asking me about like
She's like,
pop
you're putting
culture
too much
stuff.
pressure
I
on
don't
me.
know.
But we are here to talk about homelessness in America.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do these hard transitions?
Because
You gotta
it's so fun because I want you
smooth
to
us
just,
on
I
in.
just like,
A
want you to do
hard
a quick
turn,
turn.
a hard turn.
Have you seen that meme where it's basically just like it looks like they're just like skidding off on that off ramp? Looks
Yeah,
like
that's
they're going
us
way too
going
fast.
from
That's
talking
what I,
about
that's
John
what I love
Lennon
doing it.
to talking about homelessness, a very serious topic.
Yes, it's very
But
serious.
It is.
Did you hear about what happened to me, John?
I would love to hear
Let's
about it,
speak
and so
about
would everybody else
homelessness.
listening right now.
I don't know which camera is what. Is this directed? You guys?
Yes, you can look at that one.
2 times in one day, me and Alex Spencer, my roommate, used to work at TPUSA, a wonderful woman. We had 2 situations of homeless people entering our apartments.
Oh, no.
What?
And
The
it's
actual
because there's
building?
a homeless encampment right by our apartment complex. And what do you know? The beautiful area that we live in has fair housing ordinances or whatever that make it very hard to stop the homeless people from meandering through the apartment complexes. And they open the doors of apartment complexes to see if they could just get in and live there. And so it happened to us twice in one day.
What?
It was a mess.
Unbelievable.
And so I'm passionate about homelessness in America because I want to end it.
Yeah.
And I'm frustrated that these feel-good policies now make you think you're helping homelessness, but in reality, you're bringing danger and insecurity to the people and taxpayers, and you're allowing the homeless people to just encamp and not find a home.
Well, that's why
It's so frustrating.
You have these leftist politicians that think they're actually helping these people.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
sad.
Like that is the way to go. It's also we talked about so much about the border crisis. They try to make this some humanitarian issue where it's like they're fleeing something and they really need our help, and this is the least we can do. And then with homeless, it's like, well, you don't know what they've gone through. Like obviously we don't, and there's still a compassion in our hearts here. So it's not
But
like
it's lying to say that allowing them to continue like this and not doing anything about it or moving them out of that place, all these things is mean, when in reality you're just continuing their suffering. And to allow them to do things like shoot up and do drugs because that's the feel-good, nice thing to do too, none of it makes sense, because now we literally have drugged out zombies walking through the streets and then meandering into our apartment complex.
Exactly.
So if you look at it, it's like I'm a 5 feet tall little young lady and I pay my taxes and I just want to feel safe. They're lying to both of us. Both sides are losing because the elite political people are saying feel-good political lies.
Well, I think that's one of the big issues is there's too much empathy and not enough a sense of law and order, right? Because you have to have both to govern. So when you look at a situation like homelessness, I mean, a lot of it's mental health and drug issues that are plaguing the homeless community. And you have to really tackle this in such a way that's actually going to provide safety and security for the American people, for those who choose not to be homeless, for those who choose to work, for those who have businesses and things of this nature. But you also have to have a sense of empathy to be able to give them the treatment that they need. So it's a double-edged sword. Well, it's a fine line, really. But what we need to do is start looking at this as a law. You're breaking the law. You can't just camp outside of someone's house or go into someone's house and terrorize your community just because you're a vagrant, right? So we have to really have a thoughtful approach when we start tackling these issues because it's not being handled at all, especially when it comes to these major cities.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2022 though, so we don't take thoughtful approaches to policy.
Clearly.
We have a standard to keep.
Clearly.
And then they want you to think that they're doing something.
Right.
And then you have the Super Bowl that's coming up once again, and that's at SoFi Stadium. So Rams just played there for the NFC Championship game. There's about to be the Super Bowl on February 13th, and there's been crews in hazmat suits that have been clearing out homeless encampments. So they want you to think that the place is clean and that it's a beautiful place to have the Super Bowl. It's so well kept. And
as if we already don't know the truth.
But and then that's actually what it looks like right now. So there's places like Skid Row right now, and as it stands right now, homelessness has risen almost 15%.
Since when, do you know?
So this is from,
Sorry to ask you.
I think we have it here. I think it's since the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And then you have the DA, George Gaskin. He's implemented some policies to embolden criminals and embolden people that, like, you just go to LA, go to places like San Francisco as well. You got the Tenderloin in San Francisco. You talk about people shooting up. I worked in San Francisco. I saw people, I know I talked about this on Jack's podcast, that there was not one day where I didn't either see someone pissing and crapping in the street or shooting up. And then they provide disposal areas for people to put their needles away.
Yeah.
And they think this is actually taking care of them. But it's gotten worse and worse, and they're like, you have police officers out there in LA, they're not allowed to sweep the stuff up. They can't do it.
That's why I've never been to LA before. You guys are from California, but when I first went, I was in downtown LA. I was staying in an apartment for work, or a hotel for work, and I had to like walk to CVS to get something that I forgot to pack. And just in that few blocks of a walk, it felt dystopian.
Yeah.
It felt so strange because people are just meandering through the streets. They're yelling at each other or about to fight each other in the middle of the street, or they're just talking to themselves. And it's just like, where's the human dignity in this?
Right.
The people that are allowing this, these liberal policies, they claim such feel-good talking points, and then it truly lacks all human dignity. Basic human decency should be included in this. And instead, it makes people on the television political ads feel good because we're like not pushing the homeless people out, and we're not forcing certain styles onto them. I don't understand where this is all coming from, but it's gotten out of control. It's like the COVID policies. This homelessness situation is so far beyond just left versus right.
Yeah. Well, there's been multiple breaking points too. And then there's times where we keep telling people to move out of cities that it's going to get so bad again to, you know, who's going to help clean it up? Your money.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people are still in San Francisco, still in places like LA, because it's going to be up to you. And that's what they're going to try to tell you. These leftist politicians in California, it's almost, California's so far gone that it's going to get to a point where they're like, you know what? The time is now to really clean up our city. It literally looks like Gotham out there. And if you watch something like Batman, you hear people like, you gotta clean up the city. That's, I guarantee you, clip this, and that's what's gonna happen. Years from now, they're like, finally, let's clean it up, and it's up to you, the citizens of California, the citizens of LA, the citizens of San Francisco. It's up to you. No, it's been up to people like the vice president right now. That's reached the tippy top. Almost. She really wants the tippy top.
She really does.
She wants the top dog.
God, no.
But she is someone that was implementing some of these ridiculous policies like you see in San Francisco.
Well, you keep looking at the, especially when you were talking about the needles. They think that it's humanitarian to just, it's okay, we'll just clean it. We'll give them fresh needles, right? What is this? What's really, how is enabling somebody's drug abuse, how is that considered something of benefit for themselves or for the community? I never understood that, and it's something that continually happens when it comes to the left with a lot of these liberal policies. And you look at it, and you're asking yourself, what does this actually do for your city? What is this? You were talking about with the Super Bowl. They're moving people out of these encampments as if people don't already know that homelessness is an issue in these cities. Like, people don't know that there's homelessness rampant across the country, and especially in these liberal cities. But yet, and so they only want to do something about it just to save face whenever there's a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's when you want to take some type of care.
That's such a good point. I mean, so they act like they want to help people, but in reality, allowing homeless people to continue to abuse drugs by giving them free needles, it's another lie. But it reminds me of other things where we care about them. We're compassionate about them, so we want better for them, and that means giving them tough love.
Yes.
The left hates tough love.
Yes.
And so they do things like, I don't know, when our kids and people are being lied to about what socialism is, they still want them to feel good, and so they lie and they say, it'll work this time, it'll be like Nordic Europe. And so that's a lie. We give them tough love and say, it's not going to work. Capitalism, maybe not perfect, because humans aren't perfect, but it's the best system you got going. Same thing with COVID. Tough love to tell someone, listen, you're probably going to save your life if you lose some weight, because the most people that get hospitalized and die and put on ventilators are overweight or obese. You should probably get healthy. That is tough love, but the left won't even tell you that. They'll put an obese person on the cover of a magazine that's for fitness.
I can't believe you're so fat-phobic.
I apparently hate fat people because I don't want them to die of COVID.
No, but it's so interesting to me, especially over the past few years. There's a lot of people I know that attack you, attack me, attack anybody that's conservative and also calls themselves a Christian, and they're going to try to tell you what love is. Those people have not gotten into the Word of God at all. They have no idea what these passages are that they're bringing up, and they have their own idea of love. There is one perfect example of love.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And then he explains in the Bible too what real love is. And a lot of love that we're going to give you on the Christian side, we need that tough love ourselves. And then we're going to explain to people that this love that we're giving you, it might look like we don't care. But this is something more than just where you're at in just this day, this week, this month, in these few years. This is actually real love, and this is truth. And it hurts.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people that really get a lot of backlash. And also too, if you consider yourself a Christian, that's what you got promised. You did not get promised a comfortable life, because you give people real love, it's countercultural.
Yeah.
Right now, people are telling you, you can be whoever you want to be, whatever sex you want to be a furry, whatever, be a furry. You want to do this, that, or the other thing.
I want they, them pronouns, John.
Yeah. And don't get me how I think that's demonic. You can get me started on that. But there is real love, and people don't want to hear it. And this isn't just some new concept. People have not wanted to hear this for a very, very long time. People have this convenient idea of what love is, and that goes into the whole idea of my truth. I can't stand that phrase. There is the truth or lies.
Well, it's my truth that I think you use hairspray. I'm sorry.
Actually, you'd also call that the truth. Yes. Because I definitely do use hairspray.
You do?
Oh, no doubt. You didn't know that?
No, I just thought that you denied.
You're just perfect.
Not gonna be a part of that group. Nuh-uh.
That's true love. That's Jesus love.
I really have to say,
it goes from the Word of God we're talking about Jesus to this guy's got to use hairspray. Unfiltered live conservative content Monday through Friday, TPUSA Live.
But when it comes to we talk about love, and it's all based on this narcissistic desire for self, right? It's all egotistical. It's all about ego. It's all about I. I is infallible, right? It doesn't matter what you say, going to the whole my truth as opposed to your truth. It's all about me. It's all about what I believe is right for me. And what I believe is paramount to the actual truth, the actual idea of truth and reality. And you see that when it comes to transgenderism. You see that when it comes to any number of things, abortion, you go on down the list. But it's not about your truth. It's about the truth and what's right for humanity, what's right for society. And even when it comes to this homeless situation, what's right for society is being able to have some type of law and order when it comes to these homeless people who are unfortunately dirtying up a lot of these cities with the defecation and things of this nature. We got to be able to attack this in a sensible way, and we have to really come at it and be honest with the people and say, hey, tough love, this can't happen. In a civilized society, this cannot happen.
It was interesting, too, when I was driving around with one of my buddies in Denver. We were going into the city to watch the games, and he was bringing up that same...
Of course.
We weren't talking about hairspray, but we were talking about how dirty the place was.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm so...
Really, Denver?
Denver, yeah. Denver's definitely a dirty city compared to a place like Phoenix. I feel like Phoenix, the downtown, is always pretty well kept, and he's someone that grew up here in the Phoenix area for a long time. And then I was telling him about, we went to school together in LA, and then we were talking about San Francisco, that he was actually really wondering, like, I feel like I have an idea, but there's a lot of people too, you say, like, they watch the Super Bowl, but they might not know about Los Angeles ins and outs like we should. So that's why it's so important that we have shows like this to really explain to people, this is what's going on. We're going to share it on social media as well. We're going to keep this conversation going. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country is very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for drive, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
Do you like guns? Do you like ammo? Do you like suppressors? Do you like freedom? Do you love America? Do you like baseball? Do you like rifles? Do you like 9mm? Do you like pistols? Join me, Paige Rue, every week on Reloaded.
Good ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at goodranchers.com.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. If you missed earlier in the show, Morgan Zegers basically just told you that I wake up like this. The hair just, I don't have to do anything to it except a little bit of hairspray. That's it. Morgan Zegers here, MAGA Hulk, Stephen Davis.
You probably go to the blow bar, whatever it's called.
Definitely don't go to the blow bar.
Do you not know what that is?
That I do. Not do.
Yeah, it's like you blow your dry your hair.
Oh.
No, I can't imagine. What, people spend like $300 to get their hair blow dried?
Listen, John, I'm just jealous, okay? Clearly, I bully people because I'm jealous.
She's a bully.
Wow, and she was telling us during the commercial break that she used to get bullied as a kid, and she's like, I can't stand bullies, and then look at what she's doing now.
John, you can't expose me to the world.
I'm
The
telling
whole
you,
world
this
is watching TPUSA Live.
This is unfiltered content.
Yes.
That's what we're giving people right now. They have to know what happens during commercial breaks. Now they know.
I hope my bullies are watching.
What do you think they're
This is
doing
getting
right
so
now?
intense.
I'm like, wow, goodness.
What do you think your elementary and high school bullies are doing right now?
We're thinking right now.
Well, I hope they're living a great life.
Oh, it's very sweet.
Thank you. I have Jesus' love in me.
Wow. It's fantastic. So take notes, everybody.
Yes.
And this is where we're in the part of the show where it's another really tough transition.
Yeah.
Oh no, what is it?
But I know too, we've talked so much on the show about how much we really care about law enforcement.
Oh.
Obviously, the left does not care about law enforcement. They like to pretend they care about the homeless, like we talked about last segment, and they like to pretend like they are doing the best thing for law enforcement by defunding them. They're obviously like, cops are under attack. And then we did see that there was a couple NYPD officers that were slain. And you can just see how much love and care people of New York City and other officers really care about these people. And I know we're going to show you some photos of that. I know there was literally a sea of blue that stretched across Fifth Avenue in Manhattan on Friday. There's thousands of police officers. They gathered in St. Patrick's Cathedral to bid farewell to Detective Jason Rivera and Officer Wilbert Mora. And it is incredibly sad to me to see how officers like this have been villainized, where these people go into harm's way for you. They don't care what gender the person is. They don't care what ethnicity is. They get the call and they go. And you have politicians like you had Mayor de Blasio, you had Governor Cuomo that are trying to defund these people and trying to tell you that they're the problem. No. And then trying to plague almost police officers and law enforcement as like white supremacists.
Right.
Like, what happens when you see those two faces right there and you're telling me those are the faces of white supremacy? No, those are heroes. Those are people that went into harm's way and sacrificed themselves for people that they don't even know who they are. And just even look at the thousands of people that line the streets.
Yeah.
These people deserve to be praised, not vilified, and they deserve more support and not less money.
Yeah, they're the ones running into the fray where everyone else is running away, right? They're the ones standing up for law and order. They're the ones standing up for basic defense of oneself, and that's what they're doing. They're responding to a domestic disturbance, and they were gunned down. And it's just unfortunate that they received such vitriol, such disdain from the community when they're the ones answering your call. They're the ones there for you, right? And it's just amazing that these are the type of people that lose their lives. The criminals, everyone talks about the criminals. They prop them up and they say their name and all this type of foolishness, but yet and still it's the officers that they didn't have to be there. They were called because of you. And they come to a situation and they lose their lives. It's just, it's unbelievable and it's just sad. And I just love the outpour of support from, other officers, from other his other brothers in arms. The fact that they all came out and stood in solidarity for their brother. It's humbling and it's amazing.
And then too, obviously, like our thoughts and prayers go out to their entire family, and to not only them but all the police officers across the country.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't believe we've gotten to this point in society and in America too, as we're showing you this photo here of one of the wives of the officers. Like, just look at the support that these people get.
Yeah.
Like, support police officers.
Yeah.
Please.
Back to blue.
And then especially too, this is not for just everyday Americans. This is for the people in power in places like New York. You're from New York. as you've seen that place go downhill year after year, and all the rhetoric they've used against police officers.
I mean, I left for a reason. The policies are not safe for the people that care about the state. They're not safe for families. They're not safe for people that want to just live an honest life. And so a million people left before COVID even started. That says a lot. In a 10-year span, before COVID even started, 1 million people fled the state.
Unbelievable.
Before the pandemic.
And then, too, if you see a police officer, thank them.
Yes.
Probably just take some time and really get to know them a little bit more. Stop listening to these people just crapping on police officers. It's insane. Coming up next, we got Freedom Papers with Morgan Zegers and Congressman Madison Cawthorn. We will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Welcome to our first ever political correctness and inclusivity training. First off, safety. Just want to make sure that everyone here is jabbed, right? Just kidding, none of my business. So I'm Dylan, I'm your HR rep. A little bit about me. I'm a white man, and I'm so sorry if that makes any of you uncomfortable. On to the first order of business today. We're going to be talking about diversity. And Josh, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Donde está la biblioteca? I'm from Colorado. I learned that from Dora.
Okay, second order of business. This is a mental health friendly workplace. Yes, Alex.
If we're really a mental health friendly workplace, what are we doing about the suicide rate of the birds? Because I saw 2 dead birds in the parking lot yesterday.
Alex, shut up.
Yeah, there's been a really big disregard for the bird lives ever since people in the office started sharing the birds are not real meme. Birds are definitely real. The government's putting chips in their brain, which is making them self-destruct and kill themselves, and we have to be talking about the real issues, or what are we doing here at all? Bird lives matter.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
That's what BLM stands for. That's not what it stands for.
She brings this up every time.
Why is Mitchell in a Pope costume?
Why are the snacks always feel like they don't serious?
I think this went really well. All in all, this is a great place to work, and we're becoming more politically correct every single day.
Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of Freedom Papers, powered by Turning Point USA, hosted by moi, your favorite little history nerd. And today we have one of my favorite people on the planet, one of my favorite Congress people. I probably should say that too. My good friend, Congressman Madison Cawthorn. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm very happy to be on. I've listened for a long time, ever since it started, and I realized that you had Andy Biggs on before me, a Paul Gosar. I tried not to take it personally, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to outshine them today.
I have been trying to book you. You're just a hot commodity, okay? So I've been trying my best. The whole booking team has been emailing back and forth, but I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
It's an honor. It's an honor.
Now, I feel like we should get a few of the basics out of the way, and then we'll get on into the details, the anti-federalist versus the federalist. What the heck is going on in Washington, D.C.? You get to see behind the curtain. But first, we should get some info on what you're all about, because keep in mind, a lot of students watch this, a lot of homeschool parents use this, a lot of charter schools. That's really our audience here, so keep that in mind as you share all this information. This is really, really exciting stuff for a lot of people, especially someone who joined Congress at 25. Is that what you did?
That is correct. That is correct. Started running at 24. I'm on the Education and Labor Committee, which is not what they normally consider an A-class committee. You don't get all the PAC money for that and everything, but
that's insane to me. To me, I would want to be on that committee.
No, that's the number one committee I wanted. It's just because we realize that what we are teaching our children is what's going to come for the next generation. And the way they are revising history is going to destroy this country. I mean, we're doing this experiment, I feel like, with this next generation of trying to raise a generation to hate the country they're a part of. And I don't think it's ever happened before. And it's a very Machiavellian move by the left, and it's dangerous.
I'm so glad you said that. We're definitely going to get into that. I think to solve all of the problems in the country, nothing's going to be officially fixed until we upend the education system.
Amen.
But that's just my opinion. I get a little radical.
So I will tell you, I don't know what they are thinking, because they put a homeschool mother who homeschooled six wonderful young women, and she's incredible. And then they put a full-time homeschool student on the education community. committee. And I don't think that there's ever been a homeschooler that's been on this committee. And so I was sitting there and we were having a discussion with the Secretary of Education, and we're sitting there talking about the Federal Department of Education. They said, so what do you think the fix would be? And I said, I think we should abolish the Federal Department of Education. And, everyone was like, oh, that's terrible. You can't do that. And I'm like, why? Let's send it back to the states. Do you not want parents to be in control of this? I mean, your state representative who lives maybe 13 miles away from your house knows much better what's going on in your community, what your children need to be taught, than some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you experienced this. I guess you didn't because you weren't in the school system. I went to public school, and I tell you, when they teach U.S. history, they teach the policy around education, around the Department of Education, as it's what's fair to do because some people live in areas where they can't afford a quality education, and so it's the right thing to do to share federal dollars between the states. And they teach it as if because of your zip code, you shouldn't be destined to bad education. When in reality, that's actually the argument that we use for school choice, is that you shouldn't be forced based on your zip code to get a bad education in the public school that you're forced to go through this system that we're in right now. So it's just word games that the left uses with every issue, but we see it a lot in education. And they teach that to kids. They normalize the federal takeover of the education process in America.
Exactly. They teach them to love it, and it's absolutely wrong. And I think that what should happen is that we should have a voucher program where the tax dollars that you pay that are earmarked to go to education follow the student that you have. And there's even some states that you can just select a student if you don't have any children, your kids are already out, that you can then send the tax dollars to them if they want to go to a charter school, if they want to go to a private school, wherever they want to go, if they want to pay the bus fare to be able to travel halfway across the state to be in a great school. I think that's what needs to happen because we need to be able to empower parents to take control of their children's education because, I mean, really, you break the day up into really 3 sections of 8 hours. You've got 8 hours to yourself normally. If you work a 9 to 5, you've got 8 hours to sleep, then you've got 8 hours to work, or in this case, go to school. So 1/3 of these children's upbringing is ran by federal schools, these government schools. And I don't think anybody who's ever studied history can think that that's a good idea. I mean, it's incredibly dangerous.
No. And I was looking at something, it was called like the knowledge principle, the political principle. James Lindsey gave me a book then, and it's included in there. And it was about how knowledge, education, is really just a weapon used by whoever is in power, the oppressor, because they can control what information is given out. And I'll admit, maybe you had this awakening too. I used to think that it was just this indirect indoctrination, that things were being left out of curriculum on accident, or maybe in the U.S. history phase of the school year, there wasn't enough time to get through everything from World War II and the Great Depression and all that happened, and then make it all the way up to 9/11 and teach kids everything that happened in the century. I just thought that maybe that's why the history of communism was left out. And now I'm becoming more and more aware of not only was that information left out, but the information that they are teaching is completely distorted, completely distorting history. It's all on purpose. That's what I'm starting to see here. It's a weapon.
It's disgusting. And so I actually co-sponsored a bill that was going to have a section of school year where every single student were taught the horrors of communism. I mean, it is the most lethal ideology that's ever existed. It killed over 100 million people in the last century. And when we're not teaching that, when we're just kind of glossing it over, oh, well, they're just trying to get a utopia. No, it's people who want you to live in a destitute poverty, and they want to live in these opaque, beautiful, marble floor palaces. And that's exactly what communism is. It's great for the people on top. I mean, if you're in the federal government, if you're AOC and you want everybody to be locked down, you want children to have psychological child abuse of wearing masks all the time, and that's what you want, but then say, oh, well, I'm going to go travel now down to Florida and enjoy the freedom that I am literally taking away from other people. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think we are becoming more and more known as the compassionate side. We're always accused of being emotionless. I would beg to differ, and I think now it's really coming to play, the fact that we are the compassionate side. We care about the kids. We want what's best for them. And I see these kids outside in 40-degree weather having lunch because of the COVID maniacs and everything. But what also really, really just grinds my gears is this idea of teaching certain curriculum and then figuring out what the actual solution is. So some people think it's just going to be some simple solution, like we end the Department of Education. I think we have to have multifaceted approaches for this. And so that means reforming curriculum, like including communism history in there as well, focusing on charter schools, supporting homeschools, and what the radical left is doing, this gets me going, they are trying to make it as difficult as possible to get your kid out of public school. They want to only have that be the option, and we have to fight back before they make that happen in all the states where they're trying right now, the liberal ones. And right now, that's why I refuse to raise my kid in a blue state.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it would be ludicrous. It's a dangerous idea to say, oh, I'm going to literally ruin my child's life because of where I chose to live. You know, I have a saying all the time. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is when Esther's uncle was telling her that maybe you're born for such a time as this. Mm-hmm. I genuinely believe kind of the generation of people that I went through high school and everything with, that we were all homeschooled. I think that we were set aside from all of this to be able to say, wait a minute, that's wrong. And then be able to look at it, because if everyone is taught the exact same thing, if they're able to get rid of charter schools, if they're able to get rid of homeschooling, then no one will be able to actually know what the real truth is. You know, there's a great quote by a great man in history, but I think they're using it for evil means right now. It says, you know, I know history will treat me well because I'll be the one writing it. And right now, whoever controls the schools, whoever controls actually what's going on, they are the ones who can write history. Mm-hmm. They can say that, oh, well, Karl Marx was this incredible, compassionate people. He was better than Mahatma Gandhi. And I mean, it's a terrible situation.
Yeah, actually, that brings up the next question that I have for you. So you became such a young congressman. I mean, it was really impressive. You were homeschooled. I think that plays a lot into it, all the lessons that your mom gave you. I mean, she worked so hard from all the stories you've told me, and I love that. But can you talk about how that played a role in you wanting to become a leader so quickly, a public servant so quickly, and then explain why the heck you chose to serve at the federal level? This is a podcast all about federal level versus the state level and local and the different checks on power. Why'd you choose federal?
Very simply, I thought that the federal government is the problem, and it needs to be destroyed, and it needs to be completely reformed. I thought Congress is not working on our benefit whatsoever. And so I wanted to get up here to actually try and show people that you can be a Republican or a Democrat, whatever you are. You can stand for your values and still be able to accomplish things. You know, I've written more bills than any other freshman member of Congress. I've passed multiple pieces of legislation. I'm a crazy firebrand congressman. People, you know, I always shake the boat a lot, but there's a lot of people who are up here who say they just want to go along to get along. They don't want to, you know, shake the boat at all. I look at them, I say, the boat's sinking. I mean, we have to do something radical here to be able to save our country. And the people in the founding generation, you know, they were radicals for freedom. They were outliers. And I think that one of the greatest things that we can actually do for the next generation is be able to reform Congress in a way that it starts working for the people again. Because really, I think that the local governments are the best ones to be able to actually take care of people. And so my encouragement is that young people go get involved in local government so that we can have a great alternative to the federal government. Because you look at what's going on in Florida, they're a bastion of hope. You know, you have Ron DeSantis who says, oh, if you want to bring those federal mandates across my state border, you're going to meet my National Guard. And it's a really incredible thing that I think that we need to limit the power of the federal government. I thought the best way to be able to do that was to actually be here. Because obviously, if you hear that, oh, there's a state representative who wants to limit the power of the federal government, the argument can be made that, oh, he just wants more power himself. But if I'm actually up here in Washington, D.C. saying, hey, I want term limits on Congress. Hey, I think that we should only be involved in trade deals, dominant trade overseas. We should only be involved in war and should only be involved in infrastructure. Aside from that, the federal government should have nothing to do with your life.
No, actually, that reminds me, we had Paul Gosar on, congressman from Arizona.
Before me, if you remember.
I've been trying, okay? He was telling us about how, just like education, fixing that, this is going to be multifaceted, and that reminded me of this, because he said one of the big solutions is going to be getting as many people as possible with your mindset, with his mindset, in Washington, D.C., to remove power from the federal government and give it back to states. And then I also like how you said, we also need, though, people at the state level and the local level with the same mindset. So working at all levels to achieve the same goal. Right. But you're spot on. Now, that being said, you said you're on the education committee. You said you're focusing on getting power away from the federal government. What else are you doing now that you're in D.C.? Are you on any other committees? And what are your goals for your district, but also the country?
Yeah, so I'm on the Veterans Affairs Committee, which is, you know, I think that it's a real shame that we send money overseas and we try to do all this foreign aid when we literally have veterans on the side of the road who are saying, you know, I'm a vet, I'm out of luck, can you please help me? Mm-hmm. And so my biggest thing is I think those veterans, you know, deserve the thanks of a grateful nation. We need to give it to them. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to make sure the VA is working for their benefit, trying to make sure they can go outside the VA if they want to, so it's not a monopoly. That's something I really care about, that I work very hard on. But then, you know, my goals overall for my district, one, you know, rural broadband is a really big deal over there, but it's more about empowering the person. Because right now I feel like we have so many Americans, especially young mothers. I think that the biggest mistake that the left has made is by attacking children, because now you have all these mama bears who would normally be pretty apolitical. They're just worried about raising a good family and making a great life for their family. Now they're having to say, wait a minute, I'm going to get involved in politics. And I would say that the women, these young mothers in the conservative movement, they're the most ferocious ones. I mean, they make me look like a liberal. I mean, they're incredible.
Well, I see all the merch that they sell now,
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't let government raise my babies, and
Yes.
just stuff like that. And you touched on it with education. I love now we're doing the math. We're looking at the numbers, and it's pretty disgusting. If you break down a kid that maybe does extracurricular activities and goes to public school and maybe gets daycare or whatever, they're spending maybe 2 to 3 hours with their parents every single day. That's a shame.
That's insane.
And so a lot of people are waking up. I know a lot of girls. I mean, most of the girls that I know, we joke like we don't have boyfriends or anything, but we're like so excited to not send our kids to government school one day. And we're all in our early 20s. We're all excited for that phase. And I don't think that's happened in a long time. I think the millennials didn't have that.
Not at all.
It's even in the conservative movement. And now we got us, and we're on the rise, and we are saying, let's do it. Let's go against. Let's show up at these school boards. Let's have kids. Let's not let them in the indoctrination system, and let's really push forward.
Yeah, and I think if you look towards the millennial generation, you see how wrong it was for them to want to be apolitical. That whole generation was all about not talking about God, not talking about religion, not talking about politics, when those, I think, are the most important things. They were the generation that wanted to be the least offensive, that ended up being the most authoritarian, the most offensive. And genuinely, I believe that they have the highest levels of anxiety, they have the highest levels of suicide, they have the highest levels of saying that they don't have any joy in their life. And I think a big problem with that is there was never an emphasis put on them for families. And right now I think that we're seeing a big cultural shift where people are saying, wait a minute, I just spent what was supposed to be 2 weeks to slow the spread, we had 3 months in quarantine, I got to spend all that time with my family. That was so much better. I feel so much more fulfilled than I do just going sitting in some cubicle and then sitting in traffic, rush hour traffic, trying to get back home to spend 2 or 3 hours with your child. It's insane.
It's so weird. And you and I have talked about that before, I think on the Gorka show, this idea that young people are scared to grow up. And I would say it's because Gen Xers and millennials and all of society, pop culture, Hollywood, everything, they're saying, well, once you get married, you're screwed. And once you get married and once you have kids, then you've got to say goodbye to all your dreams and all this stuff. Who did we even allow to start that narrative? Where did that even come from? And when did that even become true? Because those are the greatest sources of happiness.
They are.
Kids and family and growing community, starting a business, all these things. And so that's why, like, when young students are watching this show, I like that we talk about this stuff incorporated with government so that they know that it's an exciting phase of life to look forward to. I think life is a whole journey. The entire 80 years that you get, if you're lucky, or 100 years, people live quite long these days. That's an entire amazing journey, and it's not just from, the day you're born to 25 years old.
Right.
It's
you're
shame.
absolutely correct. And, I think actually where that came from is really, after the greatest generation defeated Nazism, they defeated the greatest evil the world's ever known. Then we had just this great period of prosperity in our country, that people who fought in World War II just had a great, amazing country and great worldview. A lot of German professors who had been then brought over here to America then became our professors at our colleges. You had, there was Bolshevik people who came, there were Marxists who came. There was a lot of people who came to our country that then started trying to preach this ideology that, wait, no, the state should be your source of happiness. And so I think that's why we see this major push to, encourage people not to have children, because if you're finding all of your success, your identity, your hope, and your joy in your family, then you're going to be willing to defend that and not really rely on the state. Two, you're trying to see this major push for atheism. And, I'm a strong Christian. I believe that is the one true way to heaven, all these things. But I would much rather have a country that is of diverse religious beliefs than just a bunch of atheists, because they're godless and they don't feel like they have any greater purpose. And so then they start worshiping, Fauciism. They start worshiping the state, and they think that's where all the sources are going to come from. And as the state gets larger, the family unit gets smaller, the church gets smaller, the individual gets smaller. And I think that right now we're going to see this major cultural shift where we're going to turn things around, and the government's going to look a lot different. I really hope so.
Well, that's why the team at Turning Point, they came to me about doing this podcast, because like you said, with the people in D.C. worried about little political wins and losses, you're like, no, guys, the ship is going down. This isn't about which direction we're steering. It's going down, and we've got to fix it. And so Turning Point recognized that. They wanted to focus more on the founding. Obviously, kids in public school are not getting this education. They are not learning about the Federalist Papers. I got a degree in communications, law, economics, and government in Washington, D.C., and I think I read 2 of the Federalist Papers.
You're kidding.
No, absolutely. Are you shocked? Really?
No,
Come on.
I'm not shocked. shocked. I mean, I'm really not. I'm really not.
So that's the state of everything. And honestly, I ask a lot of my conservative friends when they found out I was doing Freedom Papers, they were like, "Are the Federalist Papers like the Constitution and stuff, like all the founding documents?" And I'm just like, you're really making my point here.
A lot of work to do.
So that's what we're up against. Let's shift to that kind of topic. Now, we go back to 1787. I
Yes.
ask all the Congress people that come on the show, if you were back there in 1787 and you were given the opportunity to vote or not vote to ratify the Constitution, do you think you would have been on the side of the Federalists that wanted to ratify the Constitution, or do you think you would have, at the time, been anti-Federalist?
Morgan, now we're going to get into spicy topics here.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I go back and forth. And
so-
it's okay if you go back and forth, too.
I mean, you saw Bacon's rebellion. We needed the ability for the federal government to be able to put down a rebellion or an insurrection that was happening, whatever it is. You saw that this generation that was there around 1787, they had just fought against literally a supreme leader, a king, the absolute perfect prime example of authoritarianism and big government. And that's what they had fought against. And so if I had lived through that and I had just fought against having a king, and I started seeing that we want to create a federal government, we don't want the states to be on their own, I would start looking at that and saying, this seems an awful lot like it's going to go in the direction that that we just fought against. And so if I was to live back then, I don't know. Because, living to this point, knowing the history that I know, there was a lot of great things that the federal government has done. There's a lot of great things America's done. It's been the greatest force for good the world's ever known. But then when you start thinking about, how the federal government is being abused right now, you start to see where the anti-federalists were coming from. And so I probably would have voted. I can't tell you how I would have voted then. My lived experiences just can't really enlighten me on that. But I will tell you, I believe that once we had ratified the Constitution, if we were following the Constitution, I think it's the most perfect political document ever created. I genuinely believe our country would be totally fine. You have people, members of Congress, who will vote for things like there's a vaccine database vote that came up, and I had a lot of friends who decided to vote for that. And they said, "Oh, well, the reason we voted for it is because it gives this many $1 billion to all these states to make their vaccine databases more state of the art, better, so things can track better. But it also puts a lot of limits and a lot of checks on these kind of things." And I said, "Wait a minute. So you literally think because you wrote down you're not allowed to do this, these people are going to follow it?" I mean, the thing that I have learned living in Washington D.C. these few weeks and few months I've been here, I've realized very quickly that these people will not follow the law. You can say that, "Oh, you're not technically allowed to do this." They'll find some loophole, they'll obscure it, they'll put in some line item that you're not looking for. These people will always break the law and always try to make the federal government more powerful, these three-letter agencies more powerful. So I will tell you, I'm very leaning towards anti-federalism right now, and that's kind of the direction I'm going. But I believe that if we can create a populace who is so enlightened that they say, "Oh, wait a minute, the Constitution is absolutely the way to go," and we actually follow the Constitution, and these pariahs who decide to actually go outside the constitutional authority the federal government has, the enumerated powers that it gives us, I think that those people should go to jail. I mean, you see Anthony Fauci, who's doing all these things. I mean, thank God that he lied to Congress so we actually can send him to jail for something like that. But I think that the standard should be in our country. If you are a federal agent or you work for the federal government, you're a federal bureaucrat or elected official, and you do something that is outside the enumerated powers, you go to jail. This is actually Nancy Pelosi calling to tell me that I'm not allowed to say that. But and so I genuinely believe that if we were following the Constitution and we made it to where you were a pariah if you go outside those enumerated powers, that not only do people say, "Oh, well, you're not technically allowed to do that," and the Supreme Court comes and rules, and then you're not able to do that. No, you should go to jail. If you're trying to take the rights and power away from the people and away from the states and put it all within Washington, D.C., that's not even a state, then you should go to jail. I mean, it should be illegal. It really should be.
Wow. Dang. Well, I agree with you on that. And you're right about it's hard to pinpoint exactly what you would have done back then and what you would do right now because, man, we're in some weird times. Now, I evaluate it in the sense of I think it was a great example of the coordination that America is really based on. I mean, the Federalists wanted to ratify the Constitution, and everybody watching, remember, the Bill of Rights did not exist when the Constitution was put up, proposed for ratification. And so the Federalists thought that all we needed was the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists, they fought so hard for a Bill of Rights. That's really what happened there. And then that's why I'm thankful for the Anti-Federalists. I don't think there's any shame in saying I would have been Anti-Federalist, because they advocated for the Bill of Rights, and that is really the list of the rights that we have in this country given to us by God. I don't think we would have succeeded at all. We wouldn't have gotten here without the Bill of Rights. And so you needed both sides to be advocating for this. I don't think any side's perfect. Now, you kind of touched on this, everything that we've seen in American history. Back then, as I read the papers, I don't know if you feel this way too, it makes sense. All the Federalist Papers about, we're going to have civil wars like they did in Europe, like they did in Greece and Rome, and everything that happened back then. We need to be stronger together instead of infighting and making ourselves weak. We should form together to be a world power. And all of that came true, and I think that's really great, and it makes me more Federalist. That's where I'm like, okay, I see where you guys are coming from. I support. Now you flash forward to today. Half of me wonders, maybe our founders anticipated tyrants. Maybe they anticipated somebody like President Barack Obama who has way too many executive orders, and they said, our system will provide checks on someone like that. And they saw the need for checks and balances. But did they ever anticipate the massive growth of the bureaucracy? Did they ever anticipate that Americans could become truly so dumb? And that's where there's a quote. Have you read the Charles Kessler version of this? This one's my favorite version. I'll get you a copy of it. So Kessler writes an introduction to the Federalist Papers, and it's just really great. He says, Publius presented the Constitution as an achievement in good government, a plan worthy not only of momentary applause, but of the rational and enduring consent of an enlightened public. I think that answers a lot of our problems right there. We are not an enlightened public, and we cannot rationally consent, enduringly consent to the principles of the Constitution. So if you think of our government being a structure that is supposed to represent and be a representation of the people, and our people are completely ignorant on these issues and on our founding principles, policy, economics, everything, of course our politicians are going to reflect that. And then of course our politicians are going to lead us into the problems we're in now.
And to abuse that power. I mean, it's, there is such an easy out that a lot of politicians use and, say, oh, so, well, when we were voting on HR, 484, there was a lot of, there's a lot of bureaucracy in there, and there were a lot of, let's just call it the movements of government. And I don't want to bore you guys with that, so I'll move over, but trust me, we're going to stop. This is going to be fine. That is a out that so many members of Congress use when they don't want to have to defend a vote. And so many Americans just don't actually understand the process that goes on in Washington, D.C., that they're not going to sit there and question them. They're not going to sit there and actually try and have a debate with them saying, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you have done this? Now, like the people who voted for the vaccine database, there weren't enough constituents in their district that actually understood the nuance of what was going on to be able to hold them to account. They were just able to be lied to. And obviously the people are going to take advantage of that. And when you were talking about, did our founding fathers actually, they anticipated tyrants, but did they anticipate the bureaucracy? And I absolutely think that they did not anticipate this, because they actually set it up very clearly to make this to where there would not be a bureaucracy, because there's only 3 branches of government. You have, but now we have this 4th branch of government, which is kind of spawned as an off branch of the executive branch of these 3-letter and 4-letter agencies. I mean, you take any 3 letters in the English lexicon, you put them together, and it's probably an acronym for a major government entity that has tens of thousands of employees that are there to actually take your rights away. Yeah. And you look at the EPA, you look at the IRS, you look at the DMV in your state, you look at what's going on in all these places. These 3-letter agencies are the problem in our country. And I think that the number one goal for conservatives should be to try to destroy the administrative state. Because these bureaucrats who cannot be fired, these people who can make mandates and regulations that go around the actual representatives of the people, and then I as a congressman can't actually go do anything about it because we've punted away the power. And the number one reason is because we have cowards in our country. I think the number one thing that we should hate in this world is weak people. And I'm not talking about physically weak. I'm talking about cowards, people who are unwilling to stand up and actually take the fight. And I would much rather live in a world where I have to take very tough votes and go back and talk to these developers and say, hey, the reason why I had to allow the Army Corps of Engineers to not let you divert this river is because of X. And then they get really mad at me. But I'm not a coward. I'm willing to stand up to that. And when I explain it to them, I actually believe that they would be rational and say, well, hey, thanks for being honest with me. But unfortunately, we have created this society where we want young men and young women to sheathe their competitive instinct. We want them to hide their strength. We want them to just be, we're all agreeable. We don't actually offend anybody. And that is why we are in the problems we are today, because we have weak people who are afraid to stand up. And so when those politicians get elected, they say, hey, we're just going to punt this over to the executive branch so I don't have to go home and actually defend a hard vote.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because Gosar, again, when he was talking about we need more people with your mindset at the federal level.
Remember, Gosar was on before me. I want to make that very clear.
You are not going to let this go. He was really sweet, though. He was saying that, yeah, in the Federalist Papers where they explain what the role of Congress is going to be and the role of the executive branch, and then when you read the Constitution, it's very clear that Congress is supposed to handle most of the things because they are the branch that represents the people.
Right.
And there's a quote that I want to read from 52, which apparently is one of your favorites. We'll read that later. But he was saying that Congress now just signs these massive pieces of legislation that hand over control and the decision-making on massive amounts of funding, which Congress is supposed to be deciding on, to these executive branch bureaucratic groups. Can you explain what do people on our side, do they care anymore? You look at the debt and you're like, what has happened to our movement? Do people care? Are they focused on other things? What is going on where this is still allowed? And do you feel like there's any mindset change? Are there people leading the way on this at all?
I'll tell you, I get the leadership and the establishment in Washington D.C. get very mad at me all the time because I just talk like a normal person. And you're not supposed to say this out loud, but the problem is we have the Committee on Appropriations. They are the ones who allocate the money that you're actually able to use.
Okay.
So you have Ways and Means, which is the most powerful because they are the ones who collect the money. They set the right tax law, but the appropriators are the ones who define where that money goes. The problem I have is that we have punted away so much of our power that we now say, okay, well, the CIA gets this many billions or trillions of dollars. But then it's very limited oversight on how they actually spend it. We allow these three other agencies, these bureaucrats who aren't elected, who are incapable of being fired, to then be able to just define how we spend all of our money.
And is that how we end up with things like us finding out that Fauci paid for puppies to be tortured with U.S. taxpayer dollars?
In Africa, what kind of a freaking person takes beagles and puts sandflies on them and says, eat their faces off? And then
Fauci.
Hang on. Let me paint the picture of how evil these people are. And of course, these people are, they're operating on babies and scalping, aborted babies and fetuses. And it's not a fetus, it's a baby. And that's so evil. But this is just such a clear definition. The scientists that they were paying to do this decided to surgically remove the vocal cords of all of these beagles because they didn't want to hear, and I quote, the incessant yapping of the dogs who were moaning from being in pain from being eaten by these sandflies. The reason that we've gotten rid of all this power is because no politician in the world wants to go back and say, oh, well, this is the reason we did that. So now they said, oh, well, my hands are washed of that. It's a lot like when Jesus was being crucified and he was at the hearing saying, I washed my hands of this. I don't have anything to do with it. It's the Jews. It's your decision. The problem is that when you look at what's going on, our elected representatives just said, hey, let's let the bureaucrats handle this. Let's let Fauci decide that he can torture puppies and he gets to spend all of our money. But if the power was actually with the people's representatives, as it's supposed to be in a republic, that would never happen.
Yeah.
That would never happen.
They'd be voted out instantly.
I don't care. I mean, Jim Jordan, my favorite member of Congress, best gold standard as a member of Congress. If he voted to let puppies get tortured, I would vote against him. I would endorse his opponent. I mean, it's insane.
Right? Well, remember the Romney stuff? They found out that he had his dog in a cage on top of the car or whatever. couldn't even vote at that point. So this is not something I was, aware of.
Gosh, Romney
let's read that part from paper 52, actually, because it's a good point about this. So this is about the role of Congress.
Yes.
And I saw this quote and I was like, huh. So it says, first, as it is essential to liberty that the government in general should have a common interest with the people, so it is particularly essential that the branch of it under consideration should have an immediate dependence on and an intimate sympathy with the people. And now this is about frequent elections, where if you upset the people, if you don't do their work, if you don't represent them properly, you're going to not be sent back to represent them anymore.
Exactly.
And so they are skirting this. They're skirting the accountability by sending it to the bureaucracy and letting them make the hard decisions,
right?
Like torturing puppies.
And exactly. And I'm telling you, if the Federalists, I genuinely believe, James Madison, if Alexander Hamilton, the three that wrote this under the surname of Publius, if they knew that this bureaucracy was going to be created, I genuinely believe they would have created something in the Constitution to actually stop it. But they're not clairvoyant. They couldn't have known absolutely everything that's happening. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to say we're going to get back to our founding principles. And maybe it's not exactly written, but let's look at original intent. There's many ways you can actually read the Constitution, but I believe the most accurate way is to look at original intent of what the founders meant. And that means that there's no bureaucracy, that the federal government is completely reliant on Congress to be able to act or do anything, especially when it comes to war. Now that we've given that all over to the president. And then those people have to go back and get reelected every 2 years. You have to cut down a tree. You have to stand up on a stump. You have to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. So I think it's incumbent on our generation to get rid of this bureaucracy.
Okay. I really like that. And actually, regarding that, something I really like that Charlie Kirk says from Turning Point is that we want a small but strong federal government. Small but strong. And I think that's what the Federalists were really all about. They didn't want some massive encompassing thing, but the Anti-Federalists said this could get big. And that's why I understand where the Anti-Federalists were coming from, because they did not want to repeat a King George.
Right.
And they were very close to doing so. And now I think we're in this massive thing. Now, let's shift a little bit. One of your other favorite papers, other than 52, is 10.
Yes.
I'm going to make you talk about some spicy stuff. There's a lot of people out there that are upset with what's going on, whether it's Texans that say they want to form their own country, or it's Californians that are annoying, and then the rest of America says, let's detach them from the country because we don't want them anymore. Or it's people that say we should just split into regions, or we should just split into the national divorce, civil war, crazy stuff.
It's insane.
If you read the Federalist Papers, it makes a very clear case for why that would be a very bad idea. Federalist Paper number 10 is the most popular Federalist paper because it's about factions. Factions are different groups of people.
Right.
I like to think, I talk about the factions of the left a lot. There's the woke people that care about all the pronouns and the A, B, C, D, blah, blah, blah. Those crazy people that if you misgender them, if you call them by the wrong pronoun, they want you sent to jail. They want you fired from your job.
They're literally advocating for you to go to jail.
They're totalitarians.
It's insane.
It's wild. So there's them, but then there's the economic socialists, the people that really think if we seize the means of production, try it one more time after 24 attempts and massive failures every time, it might work this time. I call them flat earthers of economics because they deserve that title. And then you also have, the young people that have good intentions but no understanding of history because they didn't get it in the school system, so they're calling themselves democratic socialists. There's all these different factions. And when you think of America as a whole, back then especially, and even today, we have factions. Federalist Paper number 10 was about saying, people with different lifestyles, different occupations, different climates that they live in, different areas, the geography, every aspect of our lives creates factions, creates different passions, different views of how government should be in our lives. If you think of somebody in Texas versus California, for example, we believe government plays different roles in our lives, or should. And that leads to some animosity. And that leads to some bad things. And Federalist Paper number 10, one of my favorite parts is how they say men throughout history have kind of killed each other over some really frivolous stuff. So imagine what they're going to do when they have more serious issues with each other. They go to war. They have problems. And Federalist Paper number...
I'm so confused why they outlawed dueling. Like, it just gets so much over with so quickly.
Oh my gosh.
In Brazil,
especially.
Oh, don't talk. Oh, it's so sad. So
this
sad
is a
that
harsh
happened.
book to bring that up on.
And then, in Brazil, they actually there were two representatives who had a disagreement, so they just got an octagon, had a UFC fight. It was incredible.
I heard about that. Maybe we should do something like that.
I'm telling you, I would sign up.
Imagine
right away. Even in a wheelchair, I could roll over somebody's toe. It'd be great. Anyways,
I'm imagining body size. What if we had AOC versus Lauren Boebert?
That would be phenomenal.
We're going down rabbit hole.
Anyways, but talking about Federalist Paper number 10, when you talk about our country from sea to shining sea, there is no way that you could be able to rule this through a socialist, central planning thing, because you have the Rust Belt, you have the what they call flyover states, but I call it the breadbasket of the world. You have the beautiful coastline of the West Coast. You have places like Nevada, who are just why you live there, I'm not sure, but I'll tell you, it's great people. It's pretty incredible, and I really enjoy it. It has a rugged beauty to it. Then you have places like Florida that's so dependent on whether it's trade, whether it's maritime investments, or whether it's people wanting to travel there. Or you have places like North Carolina, where we provide a lot of aerospace engineering, and we have the research triangle. We have all these incredible things. You cannot rule that from a central planning standpoint, and that's why I love Federalist Paper number 10, because it talks about if you have a very small area that is just one, let's say the ruling class is maybe 3 million people. then you could have a tyranny of the majority where the minority is being destroyed. And you think about Manhattan. They could say, okay, we're going to outlaw automobiles, and then we're also going to outlaw churches. And that might fly in Manhattan.
They basically have. Or they're
most
trying
people,
to.
Most people don't have cars. They will ride in taxis. They'll just take the subway. They do whatever they need to do. Most of them, they're not. It's not the most religious place in the world. But then if you expand that republic to include places like Western North Carolina, where I come from, we have a lot of curvy roads. And you talk about a country mile. You might be able to, in 60 miles an hour, go a mile a minute. Not where I'm from. It's very windy. You got to have cars. We all really believe in the Bible. We believe in the inerrant truth of the word. And so it creates this dichotomy and this diverseness of a country where you don't have the one extreme taking over and dominating the other and having a tyranny of the majority.
Yeah.
It's a reason why we shouldn't get rid of the filibuster also, but we can get into that later. But that's one of the things I love about Federalist Paper number 10 is it really lays out the reason why there should be so many people in our country. We should try to have the largest republic as possible, because then it's going to create a diversity where you're not going to have one major faction. You're going to have a ton of factions. And this is actually what the Founding Fathers actually warned us against, is creating a two-party system to where now you just have and this is why I think they continue to try to focus on the extremes of the things that divide us. Because really, I mean, if you fly outside of LA or New York City and you go really anywhere in the country, you stop by, you go to a Cracker Barrel near the airport, most people in that room are going to agree on basically 80% of every single issue.
Yeah.
But it's these authoritarians in Washington, D.C. and the pundits and the talking heads that try to get us to completely 100% focus on the 20% that divides us.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's creating these two extremes where we're saying, oh, the left can never be further from the right. I mean, it's the divide is so great. I mean, it's like kinetic forces are about to meet, which I think is our number one goal to try and stop. And I think the best way to do that is to try and destroy the two-party system. And I think that's really what Federalist Paper number 10 advocates for.
Yeah, well, I love it because it encourages cooperation. It's very positive.
Yep.
It's saying, look at all of the failures of history. It was because groups rise up and instead of cooperating or finding common ground, they fight each other. Because human history, not exactly the nicest thing. A lot of bad things happen, and our founders wanted to avoid that. They wanted to build something that we could all be proud of, that would last, an enduring republic, and I think they did a really good job on that. Now, I want to wrap up by talking about solutions. We could complain for quite some time, right? I mean, we could rant quite a lot. We kind of did before we even started filming, but I hope they have the footage of that. But let's talk about solutions. Let's get people ideas for what they can do individually, on a local level, themselves. Like you said, I believe the best thing we can all do is better ourselves as individuals, because we have mentally, spiritually, morally, and physically, we got some problems there. Weak people. We've got some problems there. So if we better ourselves as individuals, if we focus on the local, but also if we work on action at a national level, I think we can have some positive change and we can get back on a better course. Can you talk about what your suggestions are for people, individual level and as a whole, for this country?
Yeah, so number one, I have found that for personal joy, outside of my family, outside of my faith in Christ, outside of, the things that I enjoy to do, I have found that for me to actually be happy, I'm really incapable of being happy without some form of suffering in my life. And obviously I'm in a wheelchair, so that's its own form of suffering. But I will tell you that unless I'm being tried mentally, physically, emotionally, something like that, I'm trying to grow myself, trying to master a new skill, trying to create. But for me, I always try to dominate and take control of a new muscle group in my legs, or try and get my brain to connect. But unless I'm actually trying to push myself to do something hard, and there's a great book called Do Hard Things, I think 2 homeschool kids wrote, is phenomenal. Or you go listen to Jocko Willink, or you go listen to Joe Rogan, or there's so many, Goggins, there's so many great people you can go watch and listen to that really inspire you. Hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to push myself today, and it's going to hurt and I'm not going to want to do it, but by the 4th round that I'm through it, I'm going to be happy that I've done it. And I think that's the best thing that we could do, is to try and create this anti-fragile, which is there's a great op-ed done by Charlie Kirk. It's called anti-fragile. It's defining a new word. And it's creating really this area, because I thought that the conservative movement really was all centralized around, whether it was Donald Trump or it was always around one certain person. But now that I think that we've gone through the last few years, we're this completely anti-fragile movement where it's so diverse and there's really no centralized unit to it, so it can't be destroyed easily. I think that if we created that in our populace, to where the people are so incredibly strong within themselves, they say, I don't want to rely on the government. Why would I want a handout from you? It would be an insult for you to send me a stimulus check, because me not going to work creates a spiritual poverty that your money will never create, never fix for me. And so I think making ourselves more hardened and being willing to go through suffering, being willing to do hard things, I think that would make our populace so much better. But when it comes to the government level and ways people can get involved, is one, I really think that you should get involved with campaigns. And if you're someone who's really good at organizing, really good at logistics, I can teach you how to win a campaign anywhere in the country. It's relatively easy. It just takes a lot of work.
Thank you for offering that.
Yeah,
That's
so I
sweet.
think that people genuinely need to get involved in campaigns and say, hey, you know what? It's not the most fun thing in the world to go sit at a school board meeting. It's not the most fun thing in the world to go knock doors for a congressional candidate, for a senatorial candidate, for a gubernatorial candidate. But at the end of the day, what's more important than limiting the power of our federal government? And once you get these incredible people elected, send me reinforcements here to Congress. There are some really great changes that we can make. One, I think we need a constitutional amendment to have congressional term limits on both elected members of Congress, elected politicians, and also on bureaucrats. I think that would fix a lot of things. Two, I think that we should move if any of these really big three that are agencies, whether it's the CIA, whether it's the EPA, whatever it is, instead of them all being headquartered here in Washington, D.C., I think they should all be moved out to middle America. And when these bureaucrats can't get their avocado toast and they have people that are just, driving around with a Trump flag in their pickup truck, they're going to say, maybe I don't want to work here anymore. And then it's going to be filled with just normal Americans again. I think that's one thing we could do that would be incredible. Two, I genuinely believe that when it comes to being here in Congress, we should have, basically it's a mandated debate where you all come onto the floor, all 435 members of Congress actually have to debate on the issues, rather than these decisions being made in some torture chamber underneath the Capitol where the whip is trying to torture you or extort you to vote for whatever they're saying, or where they take you far away and they have people that are saying, well, I'll buy your house for 3 times market value if you guys actually will vote for this. And it's disgusting things that happen here.
What?
I think that we need to have where we all come onto the floor, we debate for 1 or 2 hours on every single issue that we do. And then we actually go out and vote on it, where we have actually had to have a discussion, rather than when you see the squad and you all just kind of give each other sideways looks and say, I'm going to vote no, I'm going to vote yes, and you never speak to each other. There's no dialogue. The last thing that I think would really change Washington D.C., and I think this would be something that would be very powerful. And I struggle to figure out exactly how to say it, but I don't think that politicians should live in Washington. I still live in my district. It makes a lot of commuting. I have to drive back and forth. I fly or drive back and forth. I get to sleep in my office, which is great. I have a wonderful office paid for by all of you. Thank you guys very much. But when you have to live in your district and be around normal Americans, and you stop this rat race of saying, well, I want to be invited to the really cool cocktail party, and I want to be, I want to get to that next echelon of power so people give me a little more respect. But instead, you're just hanging out with normal Americans. You have to look them in the eye every single day. You say, hey, wait. All these issues that we're focusing on, they don't actually matter. Because if you live around the people that you represent, you start caring about dining room politics. The things that affect the young family sitting around a dinner table. Saying, am I going to be able to send my children to school? You shouldn't send them to a government school, I'll say that. Am I going to be able to raise my child without fear of them, someone breaking in, kidnapping my kids? Am I going to be able to promise them a good financial future because our country is solvent? There's so many things that we could do that if we just focus on dining room politics, the things that unite us, I think that would change everything. And because so many people just want to focus on the divisive issues. I think the Second Amendment is the most important thing in the world. I think that the fight for life for the unborn is the most important thing in the world. But also, I genuinely believe that if we fought for those very hard, but we also focus on these dining room politics that affects every single person in their day-to-day lives, all of a sudden that divide would get much, much less intense. And then I actually think that's the way you fracture the two-party system. Because you have people that are just saying, hey, well, you know what? I really want to advocate that I'm part of the truckers lobby. And then you break into something that's much more similar to Parliament, where you have multiple parties. And I think that's the way to do it, to make our country less extreme.
Yeah. Well, I think with what we're facing now, we're seeing a lot
of
different...
Although, let me say, based on the definitions from the Democrat, from the radical left, I genuinely believe you should want to be an extremist. Because what they say is an extremist is someone who wants to love God, have a family, raise their kids, be able to be ungovernable and have a water source on their land, be able to raise their own food, not have to rely on the federal government or the federal supply chain. That is what they call being an extremist, and you should want to be that.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking of you because I was filling out a grant report. Like you do the grant and then you send an update on it and then you ask for more money. And the question at the end was like, can you please confirm that you have not been participating in terrorism with this money? It's just basic
well,
legal questions.
Have you gone to a school board meeting? Because that's terrorism.
Right? I was like, oh, well, it depends who you ask. Because apparently now we're all just a bunch of extremists, domestic terrorists that care about protecting our babies. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's
I
an honor.
appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for doing the show. I think the Federalist Papers really enlighten people to what our country is really meant to be. So
Thank you
awesome.
so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
I think
Thanks for
it's
taking the
great.
time. You guys, thanks for watching Freedom Papers. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Turning Point, for powering this. I think
Phenomenal.
it's just a really great educational resource, especially when we get people like Congressman Cawthorn. Remember to follow Freedom Papers Podcast on Instagram. I'll see you guys next week.
How much does the earth cost? I'm gonna buy the entire earth.
Hey there, it's John Root. Coming up next on TPUSA Live, tune into the newest episode of Politics, where Alex Clark gives the details about the potential Walk to Remember reboot, Kanye hiring homeless people for his fashion show, a pop quiz, and so much more pop culture without the propaganda. Next on Politics.
Don't do that. What? Don't do that. What? I know what you're doing. Don't do that. Not doing anything. I know what you're doing. I'm not
doing anything. You will get blocked and reported so fast. The only thing I hate more than MLMs is cheese, and you know I hate cheese.
I want all of you forever. You and me.
Hey, speaking of Nicholas Sparks movies, Mandy Moore wants this young actress to play her old role in A Walk to Remember, the reboot. Euphoria actress Sydney Sweeney says that getting naked on set has made her feel disgusting. Kanye West is poaching homeless people to be in his latest fashion show, and Pop Quiz, where I answer questions sent in by you for moi. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Hot take not on a Tuesday, but do you know which Nicholas Sparks movie might be even better than The Notebook? A Walk to Remember.
Will you do something for me then?
Anything.
Will you marry me?
And that soundtrack! I listened to it over and over again. So good. I don't know if you realize this, but it is the official 20th anniversary of A Walk to Remember. I'm old! In honor of the milestone, Mandy Moore did an interview exclusively with People magazine about the movie, and she said that A Walk to Remember should get a reboot starring Olivia Rodrigo.
Let's strike that. LaShonda, can we please strike that?
No, no, no!
No.
No, by Consuela.
No reboots, and definitely no reboots of A Walk to Remember with Olivia Rodrigo. This movie is timeless. It doesn't need a reboot. And Olivia Rodrigo for this role, she can sing, yeah, but the reason Mandy worked so well for the role of Jamie is because her entire persona was this sweet, innocent girl.
Nice bod.
Olivia has proven that that isn't her brand. I love Olivia Rodrigo, but not for this. Will someone just go get me a press-on butterfly tattoo and make me feel better? Euphoria's Sydney Sweeney says that she really put her foot down for season 2 of Euphoria and told the director no if there were moments that her character was supposed to be naked, and she didn't think it was necessary.
Judge me if you want, but I do not care. I have never, ever been happier.
Sydney said she noticed after season 1 of Euphoria that people just focused on her nudity and no one paid attention to her acting. It was weird for her to have people coming up to her about her performances in The White Lotus or Handmaid's Tale and gush about how good of an actress she was. She would be like, well, I did the same things in Euphoria season 1, you don't remember? And no one did. So for season 2, she wanted the focus to be more on her acting abilities and less on, you know, the bazingas, the clam.
Women in my generation very much admire Hillary Clinton.
Okay, don't worry about it, Mom. We all love Hillary Clinton.
Sydney said one good thing about the crew of Euphoria is she feels a lot more comfortable doing nude scenes than she has on other productions. She told The Independent, I've had experiences where I want to go home and scrub myself completely raw because I feel disgusting. I haven't watched Euphoria, but knowing me, do you think I'd like it?
I've always been with you. From before you were born.
I raised you! You were so different! So do I!
Until after you're gone.
I'm gonna get her! Kanye West is going to hire homeless people from Skid Row for a fashion show he's doing.
If you're homeless, just buy a house.
The New York Post reported that Kanye is producing a new collaborative clothing line with streetwear brand Skid Row Fashion Week, a company that donates a portion of all clothing sales to helping those living in the downtown LA neighborhood and gives the homeless people jobs in their manufacturing factory.
Hello. Hello.
I think this is a fantastic idea. I'd like to add to it. Do the fashion show in Skid Row, tell all the celebrity and wealthy guests to park in Skid Row, leave their cars unlocked, and set up the runway right by all the piles of pee and poop. That way, everyone there can get a front row show to what they voted for.
Wash the window for $1.57.
Are you gonna buy beer with it?
No.
Oh, well, then I'm sorry. Our money's actually for beer, so.
I'm gonna get schnapps.
Yeah, schnapps. Good, yeah.
Minnie Mouse is getting rid of her iconic dress and switching things up with a pantsuit for Women's History Month in March. They're clearly trying to model Minnie after Hillary Clinton with a pantsuit. But if they were going to do that, a cartoon rat would have been more suitable, not a mouse.
Hadouken to your face. Harubabubber.
It's time for Pop Quiz, where I answer questions you have for me from the link in our bio. Send me some more, by the way, for next week. This is Pop Quiz. Brenna from Kentucky asked, what are your thoughts on astrology, zodiac signs, and personality tests? Demonic. Listen to episode 10 of The Spillover. Next question.
It was straight out of hell.
Ashley from Wyoming wants to know, what do conservatives mean when they refer to a homestead? They mean live in the middle of the country with a lot of land, animals, gardens, and provide for yourself and live off the land. Don't rely on anyone else for your food or shelter or anything.
This is local?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm gonna ask you just one more time, and it's local.
It is.
Is that USDA organic or Oregon organic or Portland organic?
It's just all across the board, organic.
The hazelnuts, these are local?
How big is the area where the chickens are able to roam free?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I had exactly the same question.
4 acres.
Abigail from Wisconsin wrote in asking, what is your top piece of advice for conservatives? Recognize before you work in politics that all politics, including conservative politics, can be shady or corrupt, and people can be in it for themselves and not the movement. Don't be shocked by it. Be better than that. Change things from the inside out. Don't chicken out and leave.
Politics is just all one big ass blast.
It is a coast to
You're gonna
coast,
get your ass
blasted.
nationwide
You know
ass
what?
blast.
No. We've had a couple feel-good episodes of The Spillover lately, so obviously I had to switch things up with the latest episode with Abby Johnson, and boy has that generated some strong reactions. She has hot takes on just about everything, but my favorite part was her story about this other activist in the pro-life movement who she thinks has lied about her rape to raise money for herself and her husband. It's absolutely shocking, and maybe you disagree with her. I want to hear what you think in the reviews for the show. Still leave 5 stars, but if you disagree with anything, you can say that to me and her. Listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or you can watch the interview on the Politics YouTube. Don't forget to heart this episode. Let me know how you'd feel about a Walk to Remember reboot and Olivia Rodrigo playing the main character. Also, Also, would I like Euphoria or is it not my vibe? Share this episode with a friend who does an MLM, just, as a hee ha ha, see what they have to say about what I said in the beginning, and then click the save button so I know it's real. Politics is back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Your life hack for the week is use chopsticks to eat cheese puffs. Now, I don't do this because cheese puffs make me gag, but if someone insists on eating that filth around me, I don't want cheese dust on their hands, so they're using chopsticks. Specifically, my chopsticks are Hello Kitty that I got at a Korean grocery store in New York City. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Support Politics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's when the real magic happens. Follow us there at Politics.